to call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is better. Open public meeting, right?
This meeting complies with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice of this meeting were published in the appropriate newspapers and posted on the municipal bulletin board.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Brezzi? Here. Mr. Hyman? No. Dr. Hofstein? Mr. Hudak? Ms. Rosal? Mr. Martins?
Here.
Mr. Such?
Here.
Ms. Bradley?
Here. Do we have any resolutions tonight, Ms. Cipriani?
We do not.
Okay, and I know I received minutes, so I need a motion and a second to approve the minutes, please.
I make a motion.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Brezzi? Dr. Hofstein? Mr. Hudak? Ms. Rosal? Mr. Martins?
Yes.
Mr. Such?
Yes.
Ms. Bradley?
Yes. I have a voucher in front of me from the Township of Jackson for our recording secretary for this evening in the amount of $175. I need a motion and a second to pay the voucher, please.
Motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Brezzi?
Yes.
Dr. Hofstein? Yes. Mr. Hudak? Ms. Rosal?
Yes.
Mr. Martins?
Yes.
Mr. Such?
Yes.
Ms. Bradley?
Yes. And now that we've rushed through that, I know we have announcements for this evening.
We do, actually, a number of them. Number one on the agenda, Goffman has been carried to the May 7th, 2025 meeting. Notice must be provided. Number four on the agenda, Amendment to Armory LLC. That application has been withdrawn. And Tracy Place LLC, number 5 on the agenda, that application has also been withdrawn.
And we can swear in our professionals, Ms. Cipriani?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you will give before this board will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and position for the record.
Mark Romeyer, Board Engineer.
Ernie Peters, Board Planner.
Gina Tumalo, Assistant Zoning Officer.
Steve Mazer, Conflict Traffic Engineer.
Okay. No executive session for this evening. Do we have any matters for discussion?
No, we do not.
All right, and no administrative approvals. So as Ms. Cipriani stated, applicant number 1 has been carried. So we're going to move on to applicant number 2, Elaine Mcristal. This is for a time extension for preliminary and final major subdivision 665-1.
Thank you. And as I had advised the chairwoman, I have a conflict on this matter, so I'll be stepping down, and Mr. Shea, who is the planning board attorney, will be sitting in my stead.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, everybody. Mr. Gelman?
Good evening. Dennis Galvin with the firm of Davison, Eastman, Munoz, and Payon. I represent the Mccristals. The property before you was approved for 6 single-family homes on North Hope Chapel Road. We were approved, and the resolution was memorialized April 5th, 2023. 2 years puts us at April 5th, 2025, which was a couple days ago. The long and the short of this is we need an extension. We kind of wound up in a black hole. In May, we tried to file for resolution compliance, and unbeknownst to us, our escrow fees were at a negative bounds. We did not know that. All of the transmissions of the escrow deficiency were going to Ms. Crystal's spam account, and she's a little bit older than me, and she has difficulty working with her computer on top of that. So it took us about 6 months to figure it out, so that's why we filed for this extension. The The good news is, we have our county approval, and we're very close to our soil approval, and we will probably perfect this subdivision within the next 60 days. So what I'm asking for is an extension of time until, the paperwork I saw from the town was August 2026, but whether it's April or August, I'm happy to have that time.
Yeah, and just to be clear, so this is kind of an administrative mess up on our end, ironically. So they're entitled, as a matter of right, to 3 one-year extensions, which actually leads them out to about 2026. So what was happening was that the escrow deficiencies were going out, but the email was basically inactive, but nobody was following up. So she didn't know, and nobody from the township was following up with the applicant to say, hey, listen, you got to deposit this or else nobody's going to work on the file. So they've operated in good faith the entire time. So it's really just a time extension as a matter of right. And we can extend it all the way out to 2026 if we wanted to. 2025 is probably more than enough time
Well, I'm
that they
saying
need.
we're asking for April of 2026.
Yeah, which is
But-
fine, yeah.
The engineer report I saw said August, but it's,
Right.
regardless, doesn't matter.
Right, and it's just a matter of just rounding everybody up, getting the plans signed, and then handling whatever issues for resolution compliance. I mean, that's
Without
pretty
this
much it.
extension, we can't
Yeah.
get the plans finalized and recorded.
Yep.
With this extension and with the other 2 outside agency approvals, should be pretty easy for us.
And that is it.
Given Mr. Shee's comments, any questions or anything for Mr. Galvin? I think it's pretty straightforward. So we need a motion to approve the extension. Dr. Hofstein?
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Brezzi?
Yes.
Dr. Hofstein? Mr. Hudak? Ms. Rosal?
Yes.
Mr. Martins?
Yes.
Mr. Such?
Yes.
Ms. Bradley?
Yes,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Hope
Mr.
to see
Galvin.
you soon, but
Good to see
not
you
too
again.
soon.
And Board, it was a pleasure for as long as I was here.
Thank you very much. That was your easiest.
Yeah, that was the best application I've had in months. Are you kidding me? I want to come back here. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you. Now we have to get Ms. Cipriani back? No, they're only going to hear. We're only going to hear tonight. They were aware that there was not going to be enough because Mr. Hyman's on holiday. So we will. You gotta do this. I think until Friday. Yeah, so we're just going to hear they're aware of it though. Not to go for coffee. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. We are going to move forward to applicant number 3, Cardin Alley and Jackson Crossing number 2, Adventure Crossing preliminary and final site plan, 839-2, Phase 3 and 4. For the record, Mr. Hudak has to recuse himself on this application and 3A as well. I know that the attorneys, it's my understanding anyway, that everybody was made aware that we would not have a full board.
Yeah, but this is no variances, so we don't need 5 yeses, we just need the majority yes. For the record, Donna Jennings from the law firm of Walentz, Goldman, and Spitzer on behalf of the applicant. As the board is aware, we were here on February 5th, where we had Mr. Borden go through the history of the site and how we got to where we are today. At the end of that meeting, we indicated we were going to file some revised plans, which we did, and it did generate 2 new reports from your board's consultants. We have one dated April 4th, 2025, from Remington and Vernick, and another one April 9th, 2025, also from Remington and Vernick. So I don't believe there were any other updated reports.
I think that's incorrect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a report from CME dated April 11th, 2025, and one from Morgan dated, am I looking at the correct one, April 15th, 2025?
April 11th is CMA, you have it? Okay, I don't have that. At this time, we're going to call up Mr. Board, and he's going to go through the changes.
Thank you.
Do you want to swear him in?
I'm certainly happy to. I believe Mr. Borden was sworn previously on this matter, but would you like to be sworn again, Mr. Borden, or do you recall that you were under oath? We'll see how the evening progresses. Do you swear that your testimony before this board will be the truth and nothing but the truth? And Mr. Borden, could you say your name and credentials for the record, unless the chair would repeat your
Well,
acceptance?
given that you were sworn in and we're all, I think, very familiar with you, I think it's already on the record.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I apologize for interrupting. I want to make sure that on the record, we understand what we're hearing tonight. There's an amended site plan application that we heard previously and that we're continuing tonight. Since the last hearing, there was a minor technical subdivision application that was made. I want to make sure that it is correctly on the record, and I want to ask the applicant if they're going to proceed with that concurrently this evening, so our record, in fact, is complete as to what's being requested this evening.
We're going to do the subdivision after we finalize the site plan.
Thank you.
Do we have an extra microphone we could have? Otherwise, we have to keep.
Gina, does that other microphone work?
Okay, you ready?
Yes,
All right, Mr. Borden, if you could, why don't we go through the changes?
yes. I do have a single exhibit. We had a series of exhibits at the last hearing, and I do have a single exhibit dated today, which, Anthony, if you don't mind pulling it up, it's very simply the overall site plan that was submitted to the board.
And is there exhibit number with that?
Yes, it's A7. We had finished up at A6 at the last hearing. I'll be very brief, and then we're going to get traffic testimony on the record. Subsequent to the February 5th meeting, my office revised the site plans to address the comments received from Remington Vernick, the items discussed with the board at the hearing. Primarily, those were two things that we did. There were no change to the project as far as number of units, building, or road layout. But what we did do was we addressed, there was a lot of conversation at the last hearing about the off-street parking, the guest parking, providing that off-street. So we added off-street parking. And then we also, there was also some discussion about recreation, and we added 5 separate recreation areas on the property. 3 in phase 3 and 2 in phase 4. So I'll return later, I believe, to go over the detailed responses to the items in particularly the planning review. But with that intro, I believe we wanted to get the traffic testimony put on the record.
If you could, though, Ian, can you just show on the plan where the additional parking spaces are?
Sure.
And where you added the recreational area so it's clear to the board?
Sure. If you can zoom in, Anthony, maybe just pick the left side. We can kind of scroll around.
And if you have a count on the number of additional parking spaces that you've added, that would be helpful.
Okay, what we're looking at on the screen is Exhibit A7, and we're looking kind of expanded in the area of Phase 3 on the left here. And here you can see some off-street parking examples. We scattered them around. I know there's some comments about that John will address in the traffic testimony about locations of them. but they're just scattered around at different locations. At the end of the day, what we have is we have provided 1,587 parking spaces, including the credits for the EV spaces. 15% of the off-street spaces will be EV-ready. The driveway spaces, recall that the units have two-car garages, two-car driveways. Kind of encroaching into John's testimony, but those 4 spaces count as 3 under RISIS because the driveways aren't wide enough to qualify under RISIS. That's going to, and then we have to provide an additional half a space per unit for guest parking. So again, we provide 1,587. The number of spaces that are required, I know there's some comments from
I'm
both.
sorry, Mr. Borden, I'm having trouble hearing you. What is the total number of spaces?
1,587.
Thank you.
There was comments from both professionals, both the planner and the traffic engineer, about calculating the spaces for the units based upon the number of bedrooms, but Mr. Ray will break that down for the board. But very simply, you'll see them, again, scattered around in different locations, the off-street spaces, and then the recreation are denoted. You can see there's 3 again in phase 3. There's 1 here, 1 in the center part, and 1 on the right, and then 2 in phase 4, and those will be provided with play structures for tots and children as well.
Okay, thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, Ms. Jennings, I just want to understand. So Mr. Borden is just doing that, and then he's leaving, and Mr. Ray is, that's your, and then Mr. Borden is returning.
Yes, yes.
To do the planning.
Correct.
Section.
Correct.
Okay,
That's okay.
just want to make sure.
I thought you heard me talk enough last meeting. I talked for like an hour plus, and
And we all had,
So-
we were riveted and,
I thought it would be nice to hear a fresh voice.
and have questions stemming from that. So I just wanted to make sure there would be that opportunity.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'd like to call up Mr. Ray.
Do you swear that the testimony you will give before this board will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And could you please state your name and credentials for the record?
John Ray, REA, a professional engineer with McDonough & Ray Associates. My field of specialty is traffic engineering. I've testified before this board on numerous occasions.
Mr. Ray, this board accepts your credentials.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you could, John, just for the record, your office prepared a traffic analysis dated, I believe, November 11, 2024?
November 13th, 2024.
Okay, and that's been submitted to the board?
It has.
Okay, and if you want to go through your findings for the benefit of the board, and you also had an opportunity to review the letters submitted by the board's consultants?
Yes.
And if you can touch on their concerns as well as you're going through your direct testimony.
Sure. The November 13th, 2024 report that was prepared and sent to the board deals with the changes in traffic generation for the new plan for phases 3 and 4 as compared to what was previously approved for phases 3 and 4. And just to jump to the conclusions, and I'll go into some detail as I go through my testimony, the new plan does generate significantly less peak hour traffic than what was previously proposed. And that's important simply because our firm did an overall traffic impact study for the entire project for phases 1, 2, 3, and 4. And as a result of that overall traffic study, the improvements that were made to the signalized intersections at Route 537 and Pine Drive and the reversing jug handles to the south of Pine Drive, which will primarily serve as access to phases 3 and 4, they were designed to accommodate a higher level of traffic than we're anticipating from the revised phase 3 and 4 proposal. And I'll go through the changes and the numbers. The current proposal for phases 3 and 4 calls for 459 townhomes and 46 affordable apartments. So that's what I prepared my traffic generation estimates based upon. The previous approval for phases 3 and 4 included 48 special needs beds, an apartment with special needs beds, 428 market rate apartments, 70,000 square feet of office/retail space, a 134-room hotel, a wave pool, and a 70,000 square foot indoor water park. That was what was previously approved for phases 3 and 4 and was included in our traffic impact analysis for the overall project. So what I did was I went into the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation manual, and I prepared a traffic generation comparison for the new phase 3 and 4 proposal, which is all residential, as compared to the mixed-use phases 3 and 4, which I just previously described. And at the end of the day, there is a net difference of 67 fewer AM peak street hour trips, 216 fewer PM peak street hour trips, and 206 fewer Saturday peak hour trips. So the conclusion that I reached with respect to what's in front of the board this evening is that it will generate less traffic than what has already been approved for phases 3 and 4. And my conclusion is that the improvements that were designed and already have been constructed at the 2 signalized intersections out on Route 537 that serve as access to the property will be adequate to handle the traffic that's generated from this proposal.
Excuse me, through the chair.
Yes,
Mr. Ray,
Dr. Hoffstein.
Yes.
how many cars do you anticipate the whole development over here will have?
Okay, well, we base our analysis on peak hour traffic, so let me go through those numbers.
I was just going through it.
Okay, for the morning peak hour, the total new trip generation for phases 3 and 4, and this is a total of the inbound and outbound movements for the residential. There will be 215 AM peak street hour driveway movements, 260 PM peak street hour driveway movements, and 247 Saturday peak hour movements.
You're not answering the question. If I count the number of cars
Right,
that may be in this community,
right.
if you take 2 cars per unit, 2 cars per unit of the, not even counting the 505, just the 479, I think it is, it comes out, you would have, at 2 cars per unit, you'll have 918 cars,
There'll probably be more than that.
and going out further than that to your 10-year plan, you will have somewhere around 2,000 cars.
Not as much as that, but you're pretty much on track.
You have 4 and 5 bedrooms, and you have 6 and 7-year-old kids moving in now, 10 years from now, every one of those kids will be getting a driver's license and possibly a car. So I guess you have to anticipate that. Now, at the beginning where you have close to 1,000 cars in the development, how do you figure only 200 and so are leaving for work in the
Yeah,
peak hours?
very simply because they're peak hour trips. Dr. Hofstein, I know you've been on this board or maybe the planning board many, many times and you've heard traffic testimony. And you know that traffic engineers analyze the impact of a land development proposal based on the amount of traffic that's generated during the one highest peak hour of traffic on the adjacent roads, which in this case is Route 537. So I agree with you, over the course of a 24-hour period, or even over the course of a 4 or 5-hour window in the morning and in the afternoon, there will be more than those numbers generated. That's just the amount of traffic that's generated during the peak hour on the street, because that's the worst-case scenario.
So you're going between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock, 1 hour?
It varies from day to day, but it's generally between 7 and 9 in the morning and 4 and 6 in the afternoon.
And again, who decided that would be the number? Some manual?
The Institute of Transportation Engineers, which is a manual that's accepted by the New Jersey Department of Transportation, Ocean County, Monmouth County, every county in the state.
Okay. Now, happened to be reading through one of these things that you were talking about. And basically, those are, and it's stated in one of them, those are general guidelines according to the literature. And it also states that the board has the discretion to modify the traffic impact analysis requirement based on the unique characteristic of this particular project. So you're just going by a standard that's all over the country, and we want to go by what this development can bring in that area.
I think
Is that fair
I've,
to say? Because you can't say this is what it is, because there's no way to count the number of cars. The development isn't there yet.
yeah, they're not there yet, and I'm not quite sure what you want me to use, Dr. Hofstein. If you want to present me with some literature, I'd be glad to take a look at it and see if it's pertinent or not. But I don't have anything else but the ITE right now, because that's what everybody accepts. That's what this board, that's what Ocean County has accepted before. I have nowhere else to go unless you give me some literature or some data.
Well, I'll try to get it to you.
Thank you.
I have it written down. Just that I just think you can't just go by,
Okay.
this dot over there and that's the way it is, because things change. Every development is different. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Jennings, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say that I've been to many board hearings myself, both for this board and the planning board, and the boards have always accepted the ITE. It is the national standard, so I'm not sure what, again, Mr. Hofstein thinks we're supposed to be using, since this is what the traffic engineers use, unless there's a traffic report that the town has produced that's going to criticize Mr. Ray's findings.
So I'm not going to criticize his findings. I'm just going to question. I'm not questioning the ITE. I've sat on the board long enough now to know that's what we use and what we go by. My question is more of a realistic question. Piggybacking on what Dr. Hofstein said, if we have X amount of units, and even if we only take one car, but we haven't talked about a school bus.
Well, I
We
didn't
haven't
get
talked
that.
about, oh, I know, I'm,
I mean, we got
so
school
these are
buses
questions I
and
had written
trucks.
down ahead of time. So I'm just, I understand, and again, I'm not questioning the standards we're listening to, I get it. But I can't realistically see seeing 215 being realistic from 7 to 9 or 4 to 6. And we haven't even talked about a school bus yet. Because even again, let's put the cars to the side, we want to start talking about schooling. From 7 to 9, you're talking about high school in Jackson starts at 7:05, middle school starts at 7:35, the other elementary schools are staggered, and that's just public school. So when we start talking about school buses, we have to talk about the fact that even if you're only allocating one child per townhome, how are we only getting such a low number?
We're not allocating any specific number of children per townhome. We're using the database that has been accumulated by literally hundreds, if not thousands, of studies that have been done throughout the United States, many of which were here in New Jersey. We're using that database because that's what we use, because that's what every organization that reviews our studies, that's what they accept. The DOT, Ocean County, Monmouth County, and as I've said before, this board has accepted these numbers before. I'm not quite certain I understand why it's an issue now when it's been accepted before, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay, then I'll give you a reason why I'm bringing this up. Because when somebody comes before the board and traffic is an issue, we listen to it, and we really don't say much about it. And the reason is that and this comes from Cox, that the board has no authority to deny an application based on existing off-track conditions. And the authority to prohibit or limit uses generating traffic into already congested streets or streets with high accident rates is an exercise of either the town council or the state or the county. We know that. But there's an exception, and the exception is, and this is speaking of court ruling, the courts went on to say, apropos of the site plan denial based on off-traffic problems, the board may deny site plan application only if the ingress and egress proposed creates unsafe and inefficient vehicular circulation. Now, this, in all the years I've been on the board, this is the first time I've seen where the entrance and exit comes into play. And that's why it's never been mentioned, because we always accepted
Okay.
something that we shouldn't even comment on. We sat here and listened to the public complain about the traffic, as we always do, and we listened. But we know that we can't act on it. This is the one application I've seen in all the years I've been on the board where we can act on traffic.
Well,
at the site.
I would say no, because it's still a permitted use. And when you're talking about the access, I'm looking at Mr. Ray's report, he's saying that all studied intersection operate acceptably. So I'm not sure, I mean, there was no issue with the intersections and coming in and out of the site, correct?
No, the signalized intersections on Route 537 were designed to handle, in my opinion, an even higher volume of peak hour traffic than this would generate. And let me just go back for a second. I agree, I'm not an attorney, I'm only an engineer, but if the board or the board's experts, feel that the access, something about the access is unsafe, then you've got a right to deny an application. There's no indication in any of your experts' reports that the access is unsafe. As a matter of fact, in my opinion, it's very safe because all of our traffic, with the exception of some right turns that will go out onto eastbound 537, everything comes in and out of 2 traffic signals. You couldn't have a better situation. I did a traffic study for a 550-unit project in Ocean Township off West Park Avenue that has 1 unsignalized access to a road that's got higher traffic volumes than 537, and it works. This is a terrific plan from a traffic standpoint.
And John, wouldn't it be fair to say that the original project that was approved, I think you went through the numbers, were using the same access points and their numbers were significantly higher, that was already approved by this very board?
Yeah, I went through the numbers. It's in some cases it's 100 fewer peak hour movements, in other cases it's 200, but the signal improvements out on 537 have been designed to handle this traffic, and it's very rare that you have a project where almost all of your traffic comes onto and off the property through 2 signalized intersections rather than an unsignalized intersection. I think it's been handled very well by the designer, and a lot of thought has been given to this. And this project has evolved over, I want to say 10 years, I'm not quite sure.
We have 2 major attractions right there.
Yes.
So, the other part of this application and Great Adventure, you have hundreds of cars, maybe thousands, I don't know.
Dr. Hofstad, our traffic study is predicated upon summer traffic counts. We conducted everything is based on summer counts. If you go out there today, you'll have better levels of service than you will in the summer. Everything is predicated upon summer traffic counts. We're well aware of that.
I was going to say, any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question in terms of the reduction from what was previously approved.
Yes.
Since we're talking about the movement throughout the whole section, what has been removed that has resulted in the reduction of the
Okay.
traffic intensity?
We'll go through that. What has been removed are 6 different things.
And actually, if everybody has the November 13th, 2024 report from Ms. McDonough and Ray, it's outlined right there on the first page, so it might be easier if you looked at that.
Well, I'll go over it again. 6 different things have been removed. 48 special needs beds.
But I'm sorry, but that's where I think it might confuse you, because I did hear your testimony earlier, but aren't the 48 special needs beds still part of the traffic for this overall site?
No.
Okay.
428 market rate apartments, so when you look at that, there's almost a little bit less than what we're proposing now. The number of residential units, 428, is a little bit less than what's being proposed now, but in addition to that, 48 special needs beds, 70,000 square feet of office and retail space, a 134-room hotel,
I'm sorry, and isn't the hotel also part of the overall traffic?
Not for
this
phases
site?
3 and 4. That's back in phase 1.
Right, and that's really to my point.
I'll be back
Because you're
here,
talking
yeah.
about the movement of the traffic throughout the site, but these other things, not all of them, but some of them are still on the site. I mean,
Yes.
I understand that this is the application for 3 and 4.
Right.
But it's obviously part of a comprehensive plan. In fact, you're, in
Correct.
other aspects, relying on that.
And what I'm saying tonight is that a comprehensive traffic study has been done for the entire plan that was based on higher traffic volumes for phases 3 and 4 than what is being proposed this evening. That's essentially what I'm saying.
So, but does your report then take into account the traffic volumes for all of the site, including the proposed phase
Yes.
1?
And the improvements out on 537 have been designed to accommodate the entire project, phases 1, 2, 3, and 4.
So the pieces of the overall traffic that are being reduced, or the contributors to the overall traffic that are being reduced, are not the ones, that was my concern. When
Okay.
you mentioned all of these things that were
There-
removed, and that because those were removed, the traffic counts were lower, it didn't seem, honestly, I had a concern because some of those things are still part of the traffic on the site. They may not be part of the traffic in 3 and 4, but they are part of the traffic of the site because you said they're only on the site to entry and egress points, correct?
And there will be a hearing. I'm not sure if it's in front of the zoning or planning board. I lose track of these things. There'll be a hearing for some changes to phase 1.
That's here.
Yeah, that's going to be here. Okay, you'll get another shot at me then.
Madam
Well,
Chair?
that's
Load your guns.
But it's just in terms of the board being
Yeah,
asked
it-
to vote on this
Well-
section 3 and 4, which is being asked as separate,
Yeah.
but it's part of the overall site.
It is,
So
and it-
I just feeling that would
and
be informative.
And
for
it's
the board.
confusing, I guess, because phases 3 and 4 are coming in front of the board before the changes to phase 1. I understand that, so I had to go through, I have done since 2017 probably a dozen reports for this property. I had to go through a big file to pull out what I believed was relevant for tonight's application, and I'm doing the best I can to answer the questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make a statement that, for all involved, that while the applicant and the applicant's professionals have been on this project, as John said, for a dozen reviews, I don't think there's any board member except perhaps the chairman who's ever seen this application before. So I'd remind the board members, take your time. If you have a question, ask it. There's not a bad question. Just because it may have been covered or may have been in the report, you're not the experts. They're sitting over there and they're sitting over here. So if you have a real-world comment, concern, question, please ask it. There's no bad question here. And I remind the applicant that while we've all the professionals and maybe 1 or 2 board members have seen this application before, it's a lot to remember from month to month, what's going on. So I'll sort of take a pause and ask John some questions about his testimony. Mr. Ray, you had indicated that there are traffic improvements that were done for the project, and I would assume that's a project as a whole.
Correct.
Based upon an overall plan.
Yes.
Can you explain to the board currently, are all of the traffic improvements that are anticipated for all of the project completed at this point?
They are. I can summarize those improvements for the members that aren't familiar with the project, and I would greatly advise, if we don't finish this evening, board members to go out and take a look at the improvements that have been installed. First of all, at the Route 537 and Pine Drive intersection, that entire intersection has been rebuilt, a brand-new signal has been installed, and the existing eastbound jug handle has been expanded to provide for more stacking and also for access into some of the retail pads along Route 537. That entire intersection, including the eastbound jug handle, has been rebuilt, expanded, and a new traffic signal has been installed. Internally, about 400 feet inside the project from Route 537, there's a 4-way intersection that creates some conflicts. We were asked a long time ago to signalize that intersection. We agreed to do it. The signal has been installed, and it is safely and efficiently handling traffic through that area. Route 537 has been widened to provide deceleration lanes into the project and into the signals. And the other thing that's been done is the 2 reversing jug handles towards the west end of Route 537, where the primary access to this phases 3 and 4 will be made. Those jug handles have been expanded, and a new traffic signal has been installed there. So some pretty extensive improvements have been constructed. They're in the field. They're operating today. I was very pleased. I know the project is not fully built out, but I was very pleased to go through last summer and not have one complaint from anybody about traffic. Everything seems to be working well, even when the parks are open.
So it's working well now, but what happens when we have all these units and homes there?
It will still work well. It'll work within acceptable levels of service and acceptable traffic engineering parameters. And my understanding is both counties have signed off on it, both Ocean and Monmouth.
Okay, so let me ask you just one other thing. If you have, in the peak hour, leaving in the morning, 150 cars, did you say? I don't remember exactly how many you mentioned.
Okay,
I'm looking at your chart there, but there's numbers all over.
okay, yeah.
But say you have 150 cars, how many can leave the site at each traffic light?
At that jug handle right there?
Yeah, when
All right,
they're
now-
leaving the site and going east of
Okay,
to 537.
I'm going to give you a worst-case scenario. You got all 150 cars leaving at the traffic signal where the reversing jug handle is. That jug handle signal is on a 90-second cycle. Just stick with me. The math is very simple. It's on a 90-second cycle. That means there are 40 traffic signal cycles per hour. So that's an average of roughly 4 cars per cycle that are going through that traffic signal during the peak hour, on average. It may be 6 sometimes, it may be 2 other times, but it's an average of 4 cars. The stacking is, well, 4 cars, it's not an issue for 4 cars to be, or 5 or 6 or 10 to be at that signal. It's been designed to accommodate that.
So if you had to be at work at 9 o'clock, you better leave quite early if you're going to be at the back
Yeah,
of
you
the
better leave
line
at 5 to
leaving.
9, no. Depends on where you work.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Bessie?
Yeah, I have a question, Ray. Yes, hon. You've mentioned all the residential traffic in your peak hour, and I understand that. I've watched it along enough years with you. But I have a question. When and if those huge warehouses get into play, is that traffic terminated, the truck traffic in that study? How much is coming out by Pine? I mean, the density for the size of them warehouses, if you have 10% of it coming out, I don't know how much traffic. Can you explain how that ties into your report?
Sure. The traffic from the warehouses has been included in the overall traffic report that was done for the entire project, phases 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the truck traffic has been included, and the truck traffic will be on the jug handle on the opposite side of Route 537, because when you come off 195, you cannot make a direct left turn into the Pine Drive signal. Those trucks are going to have to come down, and that's why the jug handle, both jug handles, but in specific, the jug handle on the westbound side of Route 537 was expanded from 1 to 2 lanes and to accommodate the trucks, and the geometry of the intersection was modified and expanded to accommodate the truck traffic that has to make a U-turn when they're coming off 195, proceed back up 537, and make a right turn into where the warehouses are instead of a left turn. That's all been accounted for in the traffic studies.
Now, with the commercial traffic from the warehouses, is that the same peak hours, would be the same peak hours as your residential traffic?
More or less it will be, yes. 7 to 9, 4 to 6 in the afternoon, and that's been accounted for, yes.
Thank you.
And that will include the tractor trailers and the box trucks and smaller trucks that come in to pick up whatever's dropped off.
Yes, it's been accounted for. And I don't know if any of the warehouse space has been occupied yet, no, but I don't want to say anything more. I think perhaps some warehouse space, may have been overbuilt a little bit throughout certain parts of the state, but we'll see.
That's exactly my concern. If those warehouses ever got to capacity, which I guess that's why they built them, I don't know how that can still tie into this report and be accurate.
Well, the traffic report assumes that warehouses are fully built out and generate, fully tenanted 100%. That's what the study, because we have to do it that way. We have no other choice.
Mike, can I ask? Okay, so the bad news is I'm gonna be one of those new people that weren't here forever. So, but the good news is I like numbers. So I'm gonna ask you a few
Okay.
specific questions on the numbers. Before then, I wanna just clear up. So the assumptions you put in place contemplate the fact that there's gonna be a hotel and all these other things somewhere else in the site, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Let's take a step back for a second. There are two traffic studies that I'm referring to. One for the overall project as a whole,
Not that one.
which assumed a certain development was going to occur in phases 3 and 4, which is no longer the case, and we're proposing this instead.
Right.
And this generates less traffic than what was originally assumed. But there is an overall traffic study that's been done for the entire project. Yes,
But that overall one is not what we're talking about today,
correct.
correct? The one we're talking about today, does it contemplate any traffic from all the surrounding areas, including the hotel that's going to be somewhere else?
Yes.
Including everything, it does?
Yeah, that's
right?
included in the projections
In
through
what
this.
we're- In what we're going to discuss today, that's included? All the figures, all the numbers?
Let me try to make this as simple as I can,
It's either
okay?
yes or no.
Yeah, I know,
It's
because
either
you weren't
included
here,
in the
you
numbers
weren't
or
here
it's
for the
not.
last 10 years. I got it.
Okay,
Okay. The traffic study that was done for the overall project assumed phases 1, 2, 3, and 4. Everything was fully built out and assumed a higher traffic generation number for the old 3 and 4, phase 3 and 4 proposal. So it's all included in the all-encompassing traffic study. It's there.
but we're not talking
And
about
now,
that
and now
today.
we're going to have less traffic than we originally assumed.
Got it. But we're not talking about that one today, we're talking about this study.
Correct. And this
And
will
this
generate
study-
less traffic than was originally assumed.
Do the numbers that you're presenting today for this study, I don't care about any other, this
Okay.
study, do those numbers contemplate the fact that next door to it is going to be a hotel, for example? Is going to be all these other things?
Yes.
Yes or no?
The simple answer is yes.
Great, okay, that's all I wanted. Thank you.
Okay.
'Cause that wasn't clear with all the
Okay.
other things that were talked about. Okay, so the way I kind of think about it, the one thing we know for sure that we don't have to make assumptions is how many townhomes are we building, right? We know that.
459,
You
yes.
start with that, right? Okay. So after that, do you make an assumption of how many cars those townhouses are going to generate?
Yes.
Okay. And that number is what? Think you
And I'm
said-
talking about peak hour traffic now.
No. No. I just want right now, what are the total number of cars in your assumption based on the townhouses that we know are being
Okay.
built?
Can you be more specific as to what, are you looking at a 24-hour count for all the townhomes? I can give you that.
No, I'm looking at the
Let me
total
clear.
number of
I
town-
I don't,
He's
I don't know
not
what you're
going for
asking.
traffic.
Hold on one second, I'm sorry. If I'm wrong, please correct me. I think what Mr. Martins is asking specifically, not the traffic count, but how many cars do you anticipate based on the number of units? Not any of the other uses, just the number of townhome units.
Wh-
How many cars do you anticipate?
Cars per unit? Oh,
Cars per
okay,
unit,
okay.
yes.
Roughly, what's equal to the amount of parking spaces that are required? 1,500 for, roughly.
Is that the number? Okay, 15.
Roughly 1,500, because that's the number of park. And let me back up for a second, because I didn't get to testify. The residential site improvement standards require a certain amount of parking for townhomes and for a number of bedrooms and what have you, and our parking count meets and exceeds the RSIS requirement. But if you're looking for a total number of cars in the whole project, it'll be somewhere around 1,500.
Okay.
But they're not all going out on the road between 7 and 8 in the morning.
Okay, wait. With all due respect, all that is great. That's not part of the question I asked. I asked a very simple question, and I think you've answered it now through all those other words.
Okay.
Which, remember, I'm a numbers guy. I like numbers. So 1,500 is the assumption of how many cars are going to be in this phase, correct? In these townhouses.
Yeah, more or less, 15, yeah.
Okay, more or
Probably,
less, right?
probably be a little bit less, but we've over-designed it a little bit. That's fine.
Okay. I'm struggling with getting quick snipe answers. So of these 1,500, how many are we assuming are going to move around during peak hours? Again, just the number. I
Okay,
just
well,
want a number.
let me look at my chart. 215 during the morning peak hour and 260 during the afternoon peak hour.
260. Okay, morning is 215, afternoon is 260. great. Okay, so if I look at a percentage basis, I got 1,500 cars, I'm assuming only 215 are going to be moving around during peak hours? Is that reasonable based on all the...
Absolutely. It's based on real studies,
I
absolutely.
appreciate your enthusiasm to answer my question, but allow me to finish it.
I thought you did.
I did. Okay, so based on all the history and everything that you know about, this, if I was to do a percentage, 215 is a reasonable percentage based on historically and what the state says to mandate and all that, correct?
It's a reasonable number, not a reasonable percentage. You can work the percentages
the
out. You're a
percentages
math
you work
person.
out, yeah,
Right.
okay. So 215, according to this study and history, and I don't remember the acronyms of what you're supposed to use that you guys discussed, 215 is reasonable.
For the morning peak hour. Why don't you use the afternoon peak hour? It's higher.
Okay,
It's 260.
260, yes, that's reasonable, right?
Yes.
And again, that includes the fact that not just that we have 1,500 cars related to this townhome, but that surrounding area, we got a hotel, we got people checking in and out in the morning, right? We got a hotel, we're gonna have warehouses around there. All of that is contemplated in this 215 peak number of vehicles moving around this area, correct?
It includes the fact that phases 1 and 2 will generate traffic, and that's been included in the overall traffic study. I really wish you were here for all the other hearings,
I
Mr.
got it,
Mertens.
but this is a simple question. Is it included in this 215 or 216 assumption you just made?
No, that's just for the townhomes. That's just what we're here for tonight.
That's why I struggle. So where the fact that there are more cars moving around, more vehicles moving around, from the warehouse, right, from the hotel, from everything else, where is that contemplated in these assumptions?
It's contemplated
'Cause it's
in
not
the...
in the, sorry, because it's, sorry, my bad now.
I don't know when
I'm
you finished
sorry.
with your question, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I stand
I
corrected.
apologize for that. But it's not, to be clear, it's not included in this assumption of 260 cars at peak hour, correct?
You're going to have to clarify that the 260 is what phases 3 and 4 will generate, but...
From these townhomes only,
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Okay, so it doesn't contemplate anything from the surrounding areas, the hotel,
No.
the warehouse,
Let
any
me-
of that.
Let me try to explain one more time. The original traffic study that I did for the whole project, phases 1, 2, 3, and 4, contemplated a different land use plan for phases 3 and 4, which generated more traffic than the townhomes. That's the best way I can try to describe it. Like I said, I wish everybody on the board was here for the last 10 years, and quite frankly, it does get a little bit confusing, especially for people that are new to the situation. I understand that, but what I'm saying is that the overall traffic study for the entire site that was done several years ago contemplated more traffic from phases 3 and 4. That's what I'm saying.
I
Can't be
think-
more clear than
We're
that.
going around in circles, so I'm going to stop, but I get that, but I'm not asking about any of that. I'm asking about what's in your assumptions today. And you told me the assumption is there's 260
Right.
cars moving around during peak hours, right?
In and
all
out
I'm
from the
trying to
townhomes.
clarify is, how do you get to that 260? Is it only looking at the townhomes? Or is
Yes.
it looking at potential
No, it's
traffic from around the area, like the hotel, like the warehouses, all of that?
No, it's only looking
telling
at the
me
town.
no,
It's
right?
only looking at the townhomes.
Okay.
That's what we're here for tonight.
So, right. So how does that circle back to when I first asked, or your assumptions? Are
Okay,
you incorporating the fact that there's a hotel next to it?
all right.
And you said yes.
Let me go
So that's where my
back.
confusion comes from, if I could be, I'm trying to be as clear as possible.
Okay, I'm going to try to answer your question as best as I can. The original traffic study that we did, which resulted in the new traffic signal improvements out on 537, the original study we did projected 476 movements from phases 3 and 4. We're down to 260.
See, that's my problem, right?
Okay.
Because the hotel and all these other changes, they're not leaving the overall site, they're just going to a different, closer by. So to me, it doesn't change that total number, they're just closer by, or in a different property, but they're still there. So that's why I ask, are you contemplating the fact that they're still there, even though in a different phase? And you keep
I'm-
saying, yes, you do, but the numbers tell me, no, you don't. And now you just confirmed you're not.
I don't follow, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
Mr. such, and then I'll ask Mr. Mazur. my
Sorry, and
100 questions.
in the beginning, I may have missed your name and your credentials.
Mr.
but-
Mazur.
Okay, you said that you were a traffic engineer, correct? What is your take? I mean, you're the traffic engineer expert.
Okay. So I think there, obviously there's some confusion, but there was a traffic study. I was not here either in 2022 when Mr. Ray and his office prepared the last overall traffic study for the last set of plans that were approved by, and I'll say this board, but obviously not some of the members that were on that are here tonight. What Mr. Ray has presented as part of this application is a trip generation analysis, which compares what was approved as part of that 2022 study and what's taken out and then what's put in its place, being these townhomes. And he has come to the conclusion that there is a reduction in the overall amount of trips that will be generated by the project is part of that. And the, how do I say, the methods by which he's done that is trip generation, the IT trip generation manual, or sound traffic engineering science for doing so. As I think he mentioned, he will be back as part of the phase one, and I'll have another review letter as part of the phase one project. My initial review was hurried because I only was assigned to the project a few days before the meeting a month ago for phase one. So there'll be additional information there, and I assume you're going to hear additional testimony from Mr. Ray regarding that, and that is where the hotel discussion comes into play, and where you'll hear from Mr. Ray as far as what's removed from phase one and then what was put in on traffic as well.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
sorry, so, go ahead, Jay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think I'm just trying to take in, and I'm understanding what Mr. Martins is saying. It's almost, the way I'm taking this in is just looking at phase 3 and 4 solely by itself is moot because it's just that one phase and it's going, sure, and I'm following you. I get what you're saying. It's just in this townhouse. What I think what Mr. Martins is saying is you can't just look at what's just in this townhouse when you have so much other activity surrounding it would be taking a small little piece inside of a large circle and saying, yes, inside this, you only have X amount of cars who live here, X amount. But when you have to take in the whole, so just to consider the traffic for phase 3 and 4 is difficult when you're looking at the whole phases 1, 2, warehouses, great adventure, the summer, everything that's going on. So that's where I think some people on the board are hitting the wall.
I do understand, and I understand that a good number of the members weren't here, for the previous applications and testimony that went on for 10 years. I would suggest, and I think the board does have it, I know the board's experts have it, there is a report that was last revised December 28th, 2022, which looks at the entire project as a whole. And maybe that's the report that, you guys should be looking at to get a better understanding of the entire project. That's the report that Ocean and Monmouth counties have signed off on with respect to the improvements that we did to Route 537. And I don't want to underestimate, what's going on for the whole project, but we're here tonight just for a change to phases 3 and 4. And that's what I'm focused on. I did not go back and redo the entire traffic study because the big traffic study contemplated more traffic from phases 3 and 4. And all I'm testifying to here tonight is, from a traffic perspective, what's being proposed tonight instead of what's already been approved is less intense from a traffic standpoint. That's the only thing I'm trying to get across tonight.
Excuse me, Ms. Jennings, the suggestion was just made by Mr. Ray that the board consider the December 28th, 2022, I believe that was the date, overall traffic study. Is that something that you would be submitting to the board or having the board rely on?
I think the board
Yeah,
has
your
it.
board has it. I mean, it was
It's
to
not
the
part of
board.
this application,
Right.
but the board has it.
Yeah. Okay.
So my question, I still need to go back to you, Mr. Mazur, so I'm not done with you yet.
I'm not going anywhere.
Mr. Ray, forgive me. I'm not questioning your credentials. I've listened to you for 4 years now. I think you've got a lot of knowledge. I'm struggling here, and you need to help me. That's what I'm asking. And I think Ms. Rosal has some of the same questions I do, but the poor thing hasn't had a chance to speak yet. So part of I get it. We are talking about phases 3 and 4 here tonight. I get it, understand it, I get
Okay.
it. However, I am struggling with the number of units. I'm struggling with the fact that we're saying in peak hours in the AM that the townhomes alone will only generate 215 trips. I find that basically impossible to believe. Because when you look at the number of units, the number of rooms, and school buses, how can we really believe that there's only gonna be 215 in the morning and then 260 in the afternoon? I do agree with his analysis in that what was compared to what is, because we have to look at what was, and what was, according to my notes, there was 70,000 square feet of office space, well, and retail space. It would make sense to any of us sitting here that the numbers are going to change, and especially when you look at the hours. So I think that was a good point he made about 7 to 9 and 4 to 6. But I'm struggling, Mr. Mazur, with how can we look at this many homes? We're not talking about 2-bedroom apartments. We're talking about 4-bedroom townhomes, and approximately, I'm just gonna round the number to 500, I know it's not exactly, so don't. How can we realistically sit up here, and I think we're all struggling with the same questions here, even if I take out Mr. Martin's, and I'm not discounting anything you said, I agree, trust me, you should see my notes. My point is, if we narrow our scope to just sections 3, part 3 and 4, how can we realistically believe that there will only, I understand traffic studies and averages and standards, but we have to be realistic here that there's so many units. How can we really sit here and say there'll only be 215 trips when we haven't even talked about a school bus?
Well, it comes down to, again, the trip generation manual. It's accepted nationwide. It's been, I believe it's the 11th edition. Mr. Ray can correct me if I'm wrong there. That they're
That's
up to.
correct.
It's been, and it does rely on hundreds, if not thousands, especially for residential land uses studies. I, in a prior life, submitted trip generation studies to the Institute of Transportation Engineers, who maintain that database, and they update the manual every so many years based on new data. And that's the best available data that we have to go off of, so.
Mr. Mazur, isn't it also accurate that the board can consider, not only credibility determinations, but to some extent, their knowledge of local conditions?
The board can consider that.
Yes.
Ms.
Madam
Rosell,
Chair?
I'm sorry.
No,
Your
that's-
turn.
I was gonna say the same thing. How do you come up with 476 from the original to 216 with the changes? And how accurate are those trip generators?
Well, they're
Just,
straight,
you know,
they're straight from the ITE, so I can't make these numbers up. I wish I could, but I can't. And they're straight from the ITE. There are 6 different land uses, 6 different uses that previously comprised phases 3 and 4. I had to go through each one of those land uses, go to the ITE, and do a trip generation assessment. And that's how I did it.
I guess we're just trying
That's
to.
the only way we have to do it.
It's
And believe me, I understand the questions from the board. I do understand it, and I'm not trying to be difficult or confrontational. I'm just trying to explain to everybody how my business works and Mr. Mazur's business. This is what we do. We count cars.
Madam Chair?
Sorry, Mr. Bresci, go ahead.
That's right. Mr. Ray, I respect you. We've seen enough years together here. And you got the greatest business in the world, where you get a D at an intersection is passing, so that's a good thing, I guess. But I guess, and over the years, I looked at bifurcated applications and stuff. I think that's part of the problem here. I was not here for the beginning of this application. And you're looking at section 3 and 4 now, and then we're just referencing 1 and 2, and not being able to see it all. I brought part of it up before with the warehouses, and I mentioned the baseball fields, the 7-Elevens, and the retail and stuff. And I really find it hard with the size of those warehouses, how it wouldn't have that much of impact in those times of the morning. With trucks coming in and out, the delay of the trucks coming in and out, the only entrances they have and don't have. And you look at the roadways, and I'm familiar with them out there, that I don't want to doubt your professionalism and your reports. I understand you go by that. And I'm not arguing with you on that. I just can't fathom all that commercial traffic tied with this and not running in there with just the 2 intersections. I mean, those warehouses aren't built for go-karts, they're built for tractor trailers. I mean, it's all major conveniences there. And it's coming right at that one intersection and have to make U-turns on 537 and come back around. I mean, you can almost count that same truck twice. And I'm just confused. And I guess looking at it on a bifurcated way, phase 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, is really complicating it for myself. Thank you.
And I understand those buildings are big. They've got a lot of loading docks. And again, we use the IT numbers. I can only tell the board, and I don't want to be here until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning going through numbers, but
Oh, you won't be.
my firm actually did some trip generation studies at large warehouse projects over in Monroe and Cranberry, which the board may be familiar with if you've driven past those areas. And we actually found that the actual traffic generation from some of those large warehouse projects in Cranberry and Monroe, next to the turnpike, are generating lower volumes than the IT suggests. I didn't use those. I used the IT numbers. I think there's a common misconception about what these warehouses generate in terms of trucks and traffic, simply because everybody thinks they're going to be an Amazon fulfillment center. That's not the case with every warehouse building. There is an Amazon fulfillment center out in Robbinsville, which everybody knows about, that was a little bit crazy for a couple of years. I think they've gotten it under control now. That's what gives everybody the opinion that the warehouses are going to be generating traffic that's off the charts. If anything, I think the IT numbers are a little bit higher than what we actually measured out on South River Road on County Route 535 in Cranberry and Monroe. And I guess that's the best way I can explain it.
Mr. Mazer, one of the things in your letter was a comment about internal traffic. So you know what, I've explained my struggles. I think I'm abundantly clear here. So if we look at the map internally, I think Mr. Ray did a phenomenal job explaining to us it can stack 4 getting out. But let's talk about internally when you start talking about all these people leaving at the same time to go to school, to get to work. Because you're talking 7 to 9. So again, in Jackson, public schools start at 7:05 for high school. But we're talking middle school and all the elementary schools and people going to work. And then, in addition, any private school busing. How is that going to work internally the way this is set up? Yes, it's 4 deep at the jug handle, and I think Mr. Ray helped me understand that because that was a big concern. But internally, let's talk about traffic circulation. How's that going to work with so many people?
So my comment.
So many cars, excuse me.
Understood. So my comment regarding the internal circulation was more towards the overall development, all 4 phases, similar to what Mr. Bresci and Mr. Martins have asked. And that's my comment. My question was more for, and it'll be addressed, I can assure you, because I'll insist, it'll be addressed more in the phase 1 application. And that's more towards how the commercial and the recreational development and the warehousing development intertwine with the residential development, because the other application does have a large residential component as well. As far as this goes, and I don't want to provide testimony on behalf of the applicant by any stretch here, but again, 260, those PM peak hour trips or the 2:15 in the morning. And I mean, the IT manual does take into account things like school buses as part of residential development. It doesn't just look and say, well, the only traffic being generated is by the people that live there. It includes your trash trucks, your your school buses and things like that. Because when they do those studies, the individual, when traffic engineers do a study to look at that, they're counting the actual cars, all cars, trucks, buses that go in and out of, say, a subdivision or an apartment complex or a townhome community when they do those studies. So internally, as far as just how what you see on the screen there, I honestly, I don't have concerns with that internal circulation of just the townhomes. My concern, which I'll be looking for the testimony, is the overall project because of the way they all intertwine together.
So I don't know if this is allowed, so please speak up and correct me if I speak out of turn here. Mr. Such is the president of his townhome community, and I live in one of the older developments in Jackson, and I'm picturing what it's like in the morning. So I leave for work early to avoid the school buses and everybody leaving. So that's what I'm envisioning here. And I'm trying my best to just keep 3 and 4 and not involve everything else because we're talking about parts 3 and 4. I don't even want to think about the rest of it at this point because I can't imagine how 3 and 4 is going to work. So that's what I'm struggling with here. And I think that's speaking for Dr. Housen and the others have asked questions. I think we're all in the same situation. We're not doubting his numbers. We're not doubting his credibility by any stretch. It's just hard to believe that this is going to work smoothly and safely. And that's my concern. And like I said, I brought up Mr. Such being the president of his Townhome Association because I know that that's an issue trying to get in and out.
There are times, I mean, in the morning with the school buses, yeah, getting onto Cooksbridge Road, there is no light, but, I mean, you deal with it. I mean, really, there's really, I mean, obviously, in any neighborhood, you get stuck behind a school bus. You know, it is what it is, but I don't know. I mean, it's about time management and just when you, I mean, I guess at least for me, you get what you get and you don't get upset. I mean, really, what are you going to do?
And it seems at this point, we're talking about the circulation issues. I don't know if there are more questions from the board on the overall circulation. Obviously, there are other aspects of the report having to do with parking and some of the other issues. So maybe we should say, focus on the circulation right now.
One more thing, and this is
Yeah.
from the police report. I think it should be mentioned that there were concerns about first responders and emergency vehicles getting access to the buildings in Phase 4. It was from the police board, with the one egress and entrance.
Well, there's two, there's not one, because the emergency services could also come through the Pine Drive intersection and use the extension of Linda's Way, I believe is the name of the street. So there's two ways to get into the project from whatever direction.
Okay, I just wanted to ask that because
Yeah,
I noticed
okay.
it in the
No,
police
it's a
report.
good question.
And I'll just make one comment. I'm the only one here who was on the board when this first appeared, way back when, and Mr. Carnally did give the best presentation that we ever had. It was the first time visual aids were used. And at that time, we talked about a sports complex with rentals, and it's progressed over the years to being residential with a much smaller sports complex. So just to see the change, seems every time I come to a meeting, there's something subtracted, added, or moved. Okay, let's move on.
Can I just continue? Your turn. So, the normal business as usual procedure for calculating trips, right? Whether it's this situation or any other, the study that we're using, or the guidelines that we're using. In those guidelines, do they tell you to contemplate traffic from outside of whatever we're building that will use the same in and out street? Are you supposed to do that, or only focus on the cars generated by this development, in this case 3 and 4?
So in a traffic impact study, which is again, I'll go, that's the 2022 report, which I did get a copy of since the last meeting for phase one from Mr. Ray. In a traditional traffic impact study, you have the trip generation, which is again the IT trip generation manual, and it's all of the different land uses that are part of the development are there. So that's the new traffic.
Yep, part of the development.
You then take into account, and so in a case like this, where this was essentially vacant land, I mean, I think that there was a minor land use something on there years ago, but this is essentially vacant land, so they then go and they do traffic counts. I believe they went 6 or 7 different intersections going both ways.
My question is a little more general, though, so it doesn't even have to be specific to this.
Yeah.
You follow the directions, you follow the standards.
Yes.
Do the standards ask you to contemplate how other things around it have nothing to do with the development? I'm just going to call it other things around it, whether it's a hotel or anything else, has nothing to do with the development. But because they use the same road that we're talking about here, do you need to contemplate the traffic from that? Or yes or no? That's all.
I got to.
And if you don't know, you don't know.
No,
That's
so
an answer too.
well, so you wouldn't contemplate when you say a hotel. If you mean
Anything.
off-site, say it's 3 miles down the
No,
road
right-
past Six Flags.
No, it's
So
right.
if it's on this site, it is contemplated.
Not on
and
the site, next to it.
Next to it, well,
Yes.
you would include background traffic
Yeah,
as
okay.
part of the growth rates when he talks about in his traffic study,
Okay.
the existing condition, and then there's what you have as a no-build condition, then a build condition.
Yes.
And the no-build condition is where you contemplate known other development
Okay.
into that, yes.
Okay. So this study, does it contemplate that the surrounding area is built up already or not built up? That's a question for you. Because if it is built up, you're telling me, the standards tell you, you need to contemplate what traffic is coming from there, because they're all using the same road. If it's not developed, then you don't contemplate that. So the numbers you're reporting to me today, do they contemplate the other areas around it being developed or not?
Yes.
And when you do all that math, you still get 260 peak hours.
Well, there's two different things that you just asked me. There's 260 afternoon peak hour trips generated from these townhomes. With respect to the external traffic growth, the NJDOT publishes background traffic growth rate data for every county in the state, and that's what we used in order to project traffic volumes.
Great.
And let me back up for a second, too. Ocean County is very aggressive in that regard. When you do a traffic impact study in Ocean County, you have to project traffic volumes 10 years into the future in order for the county planning board to approve the traffic study. So we had to include 10 years' worth of background traffic growth.
Great. So now we have 260 only coming from these townhomes we just established, right?
Yes.
Only from these townhomes. Then you had to, on top of that, add contemplation of the surrounding growth of the surrounding area, development of the surrounding area, all that stuff. How many more to the 260 did you put into your assumptions to get that?
I would have to look at the 2022 report. Let me back up for this roadway that's going to connect phases 3 and 4 to phase 1 and 2. It's going to be an internal roadway that's going to be used only, or at least primarily, by traffic generated within Adventure Crossing phases 1, 2, 3, and 4. Out on Route 537, there's going to be external traffic that's part of that NJDOT background traffic growth that I just discussed. You wouldn't apply that to the internal traffic here because we've already accounted for that in our trip generation numbers. But out on Route 537, we had to include that traffic growth. And we did do that. And again, I don't want to belabor the point, but both Monmouth and Ocean counties have signed off on the traffic study.
Got it.
And they did a long review
Yeah,
and asked us a lot of questions.
Right. I don't want to beleaguer the point, and I think as everybody else said, I'm not trying to be difficult. I am a numbers guy, so I like the numbers. So I would like to, and maybe going through the details of your study, to know that number. If 260 is generated by the townhouses, how many is assumed being generated by everything around it? So you don't have to answer now. You don't have to look for it now. I can do it on my own.
I can give you, The
Because
old,
that number has to be in your assumptions, right? For you to be able to say, yeah, this is going to be.
the best way I can
answer.
answer that question is by telling you that our original traffic study for the whole project contemplated 400 and some odd, contemplated, I want to put the numbers on the record because I think it's an important question. Contemplated 476 afternoon peak hour trips from phases 3 and 4. That's what was assumed in the original traffic study.
Okay.
And now we're down to 260. We're about 55, 60%.
There's my whole problem, so let me just finish this thought. That's my whole problem, right? We go from 260, but all in, we're at 476. And for this study, to me,
No,
the
that's
all-
only 3 and 4.
Yeah,
No,
there's
3
a
and 4.
fundamental
I get it,
misunderstanding here.
but okay. Somehow, but you're saying, no, 476 is not right, because that was the old one.
It was right for the original application,
Yeah.
but not for what we're proposing now.
Yeah, but all you're proposing is to have it moved to a different location. It's still right there.
It's the same location,
It's
less
still
traffic.
It's still generating that
Yeah,
movement, those cars.
of course.
So
But
it's-
all right,
Anyway,
let me try
I'll
one more
look at it.
time.
'Cause all I want to get us to that is, what was your final total number that you assumed was moving around this area at those peak hours? It wasn't 260, because you said you contemplated other things. So what is that number?
Well, I'm going
And I
to
can-
refer to the
I can get it
2020,
offline.
I'm going to refer to the 2022 report, because
If
that
that's the
had,
number you used,
that,
that's fine. Okay, I got.
yeah, I'm getting very confused because I'm getting jumbled here.
Yeah,
My
I just
mind's
wanna-
not that sharp anymore. I'm 73 years
Sorry,
old.
It just feels like you're not answering my question. I want to know what number you used, not what the 2022 report used. What number did you use?
The number that I used in the original traffic study for the whole project, phases 1, 2, 3, and 4, was actually, for the weekday afternoon peak hour, 1,814 trips.
Okay.
1,814.
How many did you use for? How many did you use for this study that you're presenting to us today?
260.
So where's the contemplation of the surrounding?
I don't
activity?
understand your question, sir. You're totally confusing me. I'm sorry.
All right.
Yeah, I don't understand. There's a fundamental misunderstanding here that I can't answer the question.
I just want to know what number you're using.
Okay,
and
Mr.
what-
Martins, give him a second, hold on. I think what Mr. Martins is trying to ask Mr. Ray, and I have just for the record, I do have the 2022 study in front of me, so I do see where you got the 476, and I see where you got the 282. Overall, for the entire project.
Right.
It was 1814 in the PM.
Right.
And 1049 in the AM. I think what Mr. Martins is trying to ask, what is the overall now?
Oh, very simple, okay. Let's take, the overall now would be, somebody has a calculator?
Go ahead.
All right, the original peak hour traffic that we assumed to the original study was 1814.
Yep.
Okay? That included 467 from the previous phase 3 and 4. We now have 260, so if you take 467 minus 260, I think that's 207. Deduct 207 from 1814, and that's the new number for the afternoon peak hour.
1607.
Thank you. That's it.
And my whole problem is the 260 doesn't contemplate any activity from the surrounding areas.
It does. It does.
Okay, it does, okay. That's not what you, anyway, okay, so it does. So the 260 is not just generated from the cars in the 1,500 cars that we assumed were
No, it
coming from.
is. No. It
Wait.
is. That's from the residential townhomes.
You just said it's not, it contemplates also surrounding activity, right? It's not, either it does or it doesn't. Are you contemplating activity only from the 1,500 cars from the townhouse? Or are you also?
No, there's two different studies, sir.
No.
One that was done for the entire project, which resulted in the improvements being, and what I'm telling you today is what's being proposed for phases 3 and 4 is going to be less intense than what was originally assumed for phases 3 and 4. And that's what we're here for tonight, just phases 3 and 4.
Got it. And then-
Mr. Martin, so,
and again,
so the numbers, let me not mistake the numbers. Earlier in Mr. Ray's testimony, in the morning, it's 215 in and out
Morning.
trips and 260 in the afternoon. What he's saying is overall, prior, back in December of 2022, his study said it was going to be 1,814 in the afternoon, 1,049 in the morning. Now he's saying in the afternoon it's going to be 1,607. That would take everything into consideration, correct?
Correct, phases 1, 2, 3, and 4.
So then if we were to deduct, we could do the same for the morning, take the 1,049 and deduct the change, and that's what he's saying would be everything inclusive. I think I got that right, please. Okay. Is
Yeah,
that,
yeah, that's
Yes.
right. I know that's what you're saying, that's not my question, and it's not my point, but, I'll drop it,
okay,
okay?
all right. Any other, yes, can we take a 10-minute break, please?
Sure.
Thank you. call this meeting back to order. Ms. Jennings?
Thank you. I think we're going to continue with Mr. Ray's testimony. We're going to move on to parking.
Okay.
Okay, so although the project overall does meet the RSIS requirement for parking for both the total number of parking spaces and the guest parking spaces, in Mr. Mazur's review letter on page 3, most of those items deal with the fact that, in his opinion, he feels the parking is not as well distributed throughout the site as it could be, and quite frankly, I agree with him. What we would like to do, even though we meet the overall number of parking spaces, Mr. Borden and I have conferred, and we can find some spaces proximate to the buildings that Mr. Mazur is concerned with. We don't want to have people have to walk a long way to get to the guest or visitor parking. And so the long and short of it is we will respond to his items by adding some additional guest parking, which will give us more than the RSIS requires, but we will provide some additional parking spaces proximate to those buildings that are pretty far away from the guest parking now. And outside of that,
I'm sorry.
God bless you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure I have anything else that I feel I need to respond to unless Mr. Mazur feels I missed something.
So the first comment, number 1, on page 3, I think what we would need you to put some testimony on the record regarding the premise that the garages are 2-car garages, given the dimensions of the interior of the garage, in that fitting 2 cars, amongst other things, trash receptacles. It's another item I know is in my review and Ernie's review as well. Because the concern there is the ability to fit 2 cars in there, or the likelihood that the resident who is there will even try to fit 2 cars in there, and then where does that parking space get made up on site if they can't?
Okay, I think our response to that is that's one of the reasons why, as Mr. Borden indicated before, we are only calculating what's technically a small 2-car garage and a 2-car driveway as 3 parking spaces, whereas the RSIS, if you met the dimension requirements that the RSIS lays out, you'd be allowed to calculate that combination as 3.5 spaces per unit. We're only counting it as 3. The assumption is people will probably use they'll park 1 car in the garage, and they'll probably use the other space for storage, trash receptacles, things of that nature. So we happen to agree with the comment, but that's why we only calculated that combination of the garage and the driveway as 3 spaces rather than 3.5 per unit.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ray, so does that mean that you're counting the driveway as 2 spaces?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the driveway dimension is 16 feet wide?
I probably have to refer to Mr. Borden for that. Is it 16? We believe so.
And the driveway also includes the driveway also serves as a primary walkway up to the front doors of the units, correct?
I just heard Mr. Borden say no. I don't have the architectural in front of me, so I probably let somebody else respond to that. I'm not certain.
And, I'm sorry, Mr. Ray, and is 16 feet wide enough for 2 cars?
It is. It's a little tight, but there are grass strips on either side of the 2-car driveway. that, you can open a door.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Peters?
I apologize, I thought Mr. Ray was done.
No, I was just going to say that the width of an average car is probably a little bit less, or truck, the width is a little bit less than 7 feet. So technically, the 16 feet is adequate for 2 cars. It's a little tight, but people get used to it. And like I said, on the passenger side, on the passenger side, on one side of the driveway, the driver's side on the other side, you would have room to swing the door out open into the 2-foot grass area.
You probably need, then somebody's going to have to back in, because you're probably going to want the driver to be able, on both cars, to open the door.
I can't, I guess it depends on the people driving the cars, how big the cars are.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair, Mr. Mazur and I had a concern that the testimony at the site is RSI is parking compliant, relies on a section of RSIS that says a 2-car garage and driveway combination shall count as 3.5 off-street parking spaces, provided a minimum parking area width of 20 feet is provided for a minimum length of 18 feet, as specified for a 1-car garage and driveway combination.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, please?
A 2-car garage and driveway combination shall count as 3.5 off-street parking spaces, provided a minimum parking area width of 20 feet is provided for a minimum length of 18 feet, as specified for a 1-car garage and driveway combination. So the question is, if the driveway is 16 or 17 foot wide, and is it really 3.5 spaces, or is it a 1-car garage and a 1-car driveway? And so we're just looking for some testimony, some affirmative testimony, to counter the comment that was in both of our reports.
And the only thing I can, I believe the 16 feet is adequate based on the width of a typical car or truck, which is less than 7 feet, but I understand Mr. Peters and Mr. Mazur's comment. We technically don't meet the RSIS requirement for the width of the driveway. And that's why we went down to 3 from, it's a lot's going to depend on, the number of cars there are in the household, what kind of cars they are, whether they want to get 2 cars in the garage or just 1 and use the other half of the garage for storage. So it's going to be dependent on the individual homeowners.
All right, I'm sorry, I heard Mr. Borden say that's why we went down to 3. I thought you went down to 3 because the garage doesn't really, we're not counting the garage as a 2-car garage. But now I think Mr. Peters was asking about the driveway.
Yes, and we're still, asking for the board to consider the driveway as 2, but the garage is 1.
I don't want to belabor this point, but I think it's important to make sure that the parking's correct and whether or not it's RSIS compliant. In the original submission, they talked about a certain number of driveway spaces and a larger number of garage spaces. So I don't mind if they come to the hearing and say, well, this is what the change is, but quite frankly, I can't reconcile that sitting here tonight without someone showing it to us. So we can say, okay, we agree with it, we don't agree with it. It's difficult to reconcile. We've had 2 reports that have these comments in them, and we're just looking to make the record clear about how they believe they comply with the standards. So we're just looking for that, other than just telling us at the meeting, these are the numbers. I can't reconcile what they're suggesting if the driveways are 16 feet wide and they're supposed to be 18, so you can count them as 2 spaces.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So, living in Cooksbridge, parking is probably one of the biggest obstacles that we deal with over there.
I've been through Cooksbridge, I agree with you.
So on
I
my
don't know
whole
what happened
side,
there.
where I have townhouses, I actually share the parking where the condos are. So I have access to that. On the other side, they have no parking. The driveways are not as wide also. So when you do have 2 cars, and I'm also looking at the picture of here, if you have trees and other items in the middle islands, you can't open the doors. So one of the things that I faced as president when I re-landscaped is we had to remove any bushes, any kind of trees that were in the middle island. And then if it was any kind of grass, we also had situations if we had handicap homeowners trying to get out of a car when you had another car parked in there and they were trying to maneuver. Even my daughter, when she broke her ankle with the crutches, it was challenging. So,
Well, I don't think I haven't looked at the landscape plan in detail, but I don't think we have trees planted in the grass strips. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand what you're saying.
I'm just looking at this picture.
Yeah, there shouldn't be, it's just a rendering. I don't think there should be
Okay.
trees in the grass strips.
Mr. Peters, does that help at all?
Again, I heard the testimony. The question is, does the board accept that it's 16 foot wide, you can get 2 cars in there? When RSIS states 20. I'm not picking a fight with the applicant, I just want the record to be clear that they said they're going to be RSIS compliant, but the driveway isn't. So is it 2 or 1? Because that indicates how many off-street parking spaces there are. And they've indicated they have more than enough, and I don't doubt if they had 2 parking spaces in the driveway and 1 in the garage, that they may meet the standards.
But do we
They're
really
not
have
my
to?
rules or your rules, it's RSIS. I want them to put affirmative testimony on the record so we can say, if they need to request a de minimis waiver, it can be a condition of the approval if the board acts affirmatively. I want our record to be clear about what they need any form of relief for.
Mr. Ray? Yes. Did you hear
Who's
Mr.
talk-
Peters' comment?
Yes, I did.
And?
I tried to explain it as best as I could, with the 16 feet, but I think we're thinking about it. But as I've indicated, we recognize it's going to be tight, but given the fact that the average, car or truck is less than 7 feet wide, they fit.
So, Mr. Ray, are you saying, are either you saying that you are not asking for a waiver because you don't think you need one, or you're still contemplating that question?
I don't, waiver from what? From RSIS?
Yes.
Well, the board has the power, what we're asking the board to do, if they believe the testimony is sufficient, is grant what's called a de minimis exception from the RSIS.
Okay, so you are asking for that?
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I got to be honest with you, and I just said to Dr. Hofstein, I wish I knew the width of my driveway. Because if I knew the width of my driveway, and I was able to say to you, it's 16 feet, I would tell you, man, you need 1 more foot. Because if I had that 1 more foot, because I'll tell you, and I'm just saying, my wife pulls in sometimes, and she's a little bit too over, and then I'm sitting there, and I can't park, and I got to run in the house and move her car, and I mean, she has a bigger car, and I have a bigger car as well, but then there's other times then, I'll find myself, I'm almost on that middle median, and then the neighbor can't open his door, and it's a whole thing. So I would love if I could figure out, or at least present to the board, what my driveway is, just as living example, to come back and say, this is what we got.
We hear you, and I think Mr. Borden just said we can make the driveways 18 feet wide by just eliminating the grass strip.
Yeah, that sounds great. There you go. Awesome.
I couldn't say it until somebody gave me the permission to say it, but that's what we're going to do.
Sorry. Mr. Peters, Mr. Mazur, your thoughts on that, them going to 18?
And again, 18, yeah, that sounds great. But like I said, if I knew as living proof of what I've been dealing with for 11 years, if I can get that, like I said, if it was 16 feet at my house now and I can come back to the board and say, man, 17 feet would be great. And you could still keep that little path of grass in there just for some separation.
Maybe your wife can go out.
And I wouldn't
and
even
measure.
dare to call my wife and ask her.
Call
to
in.
measure.
Mr. Peters, did I understand? Did did I understand when you were saying to meet the RSIS standards, there has to be 3.5 off-street parking spaces with a 20 feet width minimum, but they would accept 18? Did I get that right, or no?
Oh, it's 20 feet of width for a length of 18 feet from the
Length,
driveway
okay,
towards the
sorry.
street.
So technically, even if we made the driveway 18 feet wide, we would still need a de minimis exception. But I would point out that that gives you 2 9-foot wide parking spaces, which is what the RSIS requires for an off-street parking spot. It's 9 foot wide.
So, just to be, so the de minimis amount would be, in this case, you're building 18, would be 2 feet, is what we'd be
Yes.
waiving?
Yes.
That's correct. Sorry, Mrs. Jennings, I'm just thinking about the technical subdivision to come.
Understood. Were there any additional comments in the CME review letter that we need to address?
I would say I know there'll be some other testimony tonight, and some of the engineering and planning testimony from the other professionals may address some of my concerns that maybe are more directed to them than Mr. Ray. So just reserve the right to ask questions later if that appeals to the board.
Madam Chair, I just have one more because I'm not sure if a site civil is going to cover it, but Mr. Ray can't testified about the RSIS parking compliance, so I want to ask him, the EV-ready parking spaces, which is sort of a new requirement for RSIS, could you explain how the applicant plans to reconcile the need for those on the project?
I'll do my best, and Mr. Borden can supplement whatever. I believe we have provided some EV spaces, and we get a credit, as I shouldn't assume everybody knows, you get a credit for 2 parking spaces for every 1 EV space that you construct. And I just want to look over the numbers. I did see them. Hang on one second. So in terms of the guest parking, we require 230, and we're going to provide 210 physical spaces, but 32 of them are going to be EV ready, so we get a credit, or 16 of them are going to be EV ready, so we get a credit for 32. So the actual number of parking spaces provided for the guest parking is 242, where 230 is required.
What about the requirement of providing 15% of the spaces on the site?
I'm not totally familiar with the EV requirement. It's not something that, if you're saying we're required to do 15%, we'll do 15%.
One of the new sections of RSIS says that 15% of the spaces approved by the municipality shall be make-ready or
Okay.
installed with EV equipment.
Mr. Borden just indicated he will address that. He's the designer, and he will address your question, Mr. Peters.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, and actually, this is probably Mr. Mazur's question. Maybe I'm asking it at the wrong time, but or it was covered earlier when you talked about changing the guest parking spaces. But what's happening with the on-street parking?
We will be adjusting the number of EV-ready spaces. Mr. Borden will testify based on the fact that, as Mr. Peters indicated, apparently the RSIS requires us to have 15% of our guest parking be EV-ready spaces. So we're going to have to adjust that number and install more of them, which is actually going to give us a higher parking count because we get a credit for 2 spaces. And that may help us find some additional parking spaces in between the buildings that Mr. Mazur is concerned about, where the parking isn't as well distributed as he would like. So we'll make that adjustment, and we'll comply.
Okay, so there is or is not going to be on-street parking?
Well, it's actually 90-degree. You could classify, it's not on-street, it's off-street, but it's 90 degrees to the street, but it's not parallel. So I would call it off-street parking. It's a 90-degree parking space that's perpendicular, excuse me, to the aisle, which is an accepted way which RSIS allows you to do. So it's not a parallel space, it's a perpendicular space.
And it's not on an angle.
No, 90 degrees.
Sorry, I'm just
Ms. Cipriani?
very familiar with angle parking and how fun it is to get out of it on Route 35 in the summer.
Ms.
Oh,
Cipriani, if I
okay.
may, the comment I had was related to the width of all of the roadways. I believe every roadway on the site is 24 feet, and RSIS does not support parallel parking on either side of any street when the road width is that. And I think my comment was that the street should probably be signed as such, so that nobody's confused and thinks that they can
And
park
we
on a
agree.
stretch. And so, thank you.
We concur, and we will follow through on signage.
And then I think Mr. Ray addressed, I had 3 consecutive comments about the parking, the guest parking distribution. I think the only really outstanding question is that I had, the comment that I had is the 2, we'll call them off-street parkings as Mr. Ray described them, along Linda's Way. We had concerns with those spaces being there because Linda's Way does operate differently than the rest of the roads in the community because of the connection, it being the main thoroughfare through, and its connection to phases 1 and 2. So I don't know if you want to discuss that.
Well, we believe that those parking spaces are appropriate, even though Linda's Way is the connecting road between the two different, well, 4 different phases, between phases 3 and 4 and phases 1 and 2. If you look at the overall site plan, and perhaps this goes back to Mr. Martin's comments before, and I didn't think about it until now, the way the site actually is going to function is the signal at Pine Drive and Route 537, which is to the east of what we're looking at on this sheet. That's going to be the primary access for the recreation, for the warehouses, for the restaurants. It's going to probably take 80% of the traffic that the site generates. The residential area down here is going to primarily be served by the traffic signal at the reversing jug handles. And so I guess what I'm saying is I don't think there's going to be a significantly, a significant amount of traffic on Linda's Way in this area because it's primarily only going to be used by the residential traffic. So we'd like to keep them if we could. And we think they are in an appropriate location that they can safely back up into Linda's Way.
Can I ask a question, please? Could you use the pointer, Mr. Ray, and show me exactly what we're talking about so we can get a better understanding?
Right here, there's a bank of parking spaces, and right here. And they back up into Linda's Way. So there's 2 areas, as Mr. Mazur indicated, where we have some parking that's 90 degrees to Linda's Way and backs up into that roadway in order to get out.
So, Mr. Mazur, what you're saying is because of the way they're situated, it's going to be difficult with Linda Way being used the way it is, that it's going to be more dangerous because of the way that they're not slanted, but set up.
That's correct. Because Linda's Way, it would operate more along the lines of a collector street or even an arterial type roadway because of the level of traffic that would be anticipated on a daily basis, that you ordinarily would not have traffic backing up directly onto that. Similar to not having any of the townhome driveways along Linda's Way. And that's my concern.
Yeah, that does answer my question, which helps me to understand the assumptions that went into it. That's it. Thank you.
And Mr. Ray, but you think that that's safe? Why is that?
I personally do.
So given the level of traffic on Linda's Way, you don't think that'll create a problem?
No, I don't. I think Linda's Way in this area is primarily going to serve the residential community, and I don't think the volumes are going to be of a magnitude that would create issues for those cars to back out.
Yeah, just to state the obvious, yes, so to me, that's a key assumption right there. And
I got
your
it.
expertise, you feel it's a good assumption, so we go with that, but thanks.
And so there is a section of the land development ordinance that deals with the parking stalls on major circulation drives. If the board does, and I think that goes, and Ernie, you could step in if I'm wrong here, that goes for a couple of the other areas as well, where the off-street parking is along some of the major circulation drives that are off of Linda's Way, so that they may need a design waiver from the board for that, if I'm correct. And that same would go for Linda's Way if the board was to consider that.
Mr. Peters, any input?
Mr. Mazur's correct. The residential site improvement standards classify roads and drives based upon number of vehicle trips per day, based upon the type of use. So when you reach a certain standard, you call it something else. I'm not sure we've heard any testimony specific to that throughout the project, other than from the general comment that Linda's Way is the main access from 537 over into Section 1. But there may be other parts of the main circulation aisles off of Linda Way that, because of the number of vehicle trips, may rise to the level of a different roadway classification, which may limit their ability to have on-street parking. But we haven't heard that testimony yet.
I haven't run the numbers for Linda's Way, so I don't know what the answer is, but all I can say is whatever the road classification is, I don't think the volumes on that road will be of a magnitude to create a problem for people to back out onto that road. That's all I can say.
So, Mr. Ray, you're not, you have not looked into what the classification for Linda's Way or any of the other roadways would be?
As far as RSIS is concerned, no. I haven't done that calculation.
And what kind of factors go into that calculation, Mr. Ray?
Well, you would look at, for example, you'd look at, I want to go to Phase 3 first, Phase 3A and B. Those vehicles, that portion of, if it's still called Linda's Way, it is, would have, that area would probably have a higher traffic volume in there because you've got Phases 3 and Phase 4 contributing traffic to that section of Linda's Way. Whereas the section of Linda's Way that's over by Phase 4 will not receive much, if any, traffic from Phase 3 because they're going to go out to the traffic light. So you'd have to look at Phase 3 and Phase 4 separately. And I haven't done those calculations, but you'd have to look at the traffic generation numbers for a 24-hour period for both Phase 3, Phase 4, and look at how that traffic would be distributed. And then you'd have to add in some traffic from Phases 1 and 2 that might use Linda's Way. I don't see that being a large amount of traffic, that they're probably 90% of that traffic is going to go out to Pine Drive because it's going to be easier. But we'd have to factor in something for Phases 1 and 2 as well. But given all of those factors, I don't think backing up onto that section of Linda's Way, given the fact that, the Phase 3 townhomes are not really going to be on that portion of Linda's Way, I don't think it's an issue.
And Mr. Ray, I'm probably just being persnickety because that's my nature. But you had said earlier that when I asked you if you had looked into the road classification for Linda's Way or any of the other roads on site, you said not for RSIS purposes. Have you looked at them in terms of classifying those roadways in any other way?
I have not, but I believe, Mr. Borden, I believe Linda's Way has a cartway at 30 feet. and he can correct me if I'm wrong. And if that in fact is the case, RSIS permits parallel parking on both sides of the street, and we could address the off-street parking that way. If that's the board's desire, we could take a look at that. A 30-foot wide street, according to RSIS, permits parking on both sides. So if it's a 30-foot wide cartway, we could look at it, we could replace those parking spaces with parallel spaces. Yeah.
That is correct. The 30-foot wide road would allow parking on both sides, but only if it's classified as a local roadway. If there's consideration to it being a collector or a, I think the classification is a neighborhood street for the 30 feet, and that's RSIS allowed that as a throwback to prior typical development in the state of New Jersey. But if it's deemed to be of a higher order street, which I believe it is, regardless whether the traffic volumes is, that even if it was 30 feet, you wouldn't have parking on either side. But and they can correct me here, but I thought I read the plans to be 24 feet for the lion's share of this, the cartway of 24 feet.
Okay.
No.
And just to try to kind of address it a little bit further, what I would propose and what I was just thinking of is parallel parking, even though we're permitted, if it's a local street, to park on both sides of the street, I would propose just having parallel parking on one side of the street to leave the cartway open. And going back to RSIS, you only need a 28-foot wide street with parking on one side in order to maintain two-way traffic. And if we have 30 feet and we only have parking on one side, we can address the situation that way, in my opinion.
And that's based on the determination that it's a local road?
That would actually, I think that would be for a collector road as well, too. Just have, if it was 30 feet wide, I think we could have parking on one side of the street. And of course, I think it would be on the side of the street that's on the, what side that would be? I'm looking at the directions here. It would be on the side of the street where the townhomes are, not on the opposite side. So they wouldn't have to cross the street. Yeah, we understand the comments, and we are going to work on the guest and visitor parking and present the plan to you at the next meeting that will meet RSIS and hopefully meet your approval as well, too. We're going to work on that.
Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Any other additional questions for Mr. Ray? Ms. Jen?
We'll
Is
move
there
on.
anyone
Okay.
from the public wishing to come forward and ask any questions regarding traffic of Mr. Ray? Seeing no one come forward, Ms. Jennings, Mr. Ray, you have anything else?
I do not, no. Thank you very much for your patience. I tried to answer your questions to the best of my ability, and I know it was confusing at times.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, John. Okay, at this time, we'd like to call up Ian Borden. Okay, so, Mr. Borden, you're still under oath?
Yes.
And I think you wanted to touch on first the EV parking station while we're still a little bit on traffic, tail end.
Yes, just to, the last two items discussed, the EV park, or EV ready spaces. We're required to provide, first of all, each of the driveways for the townhouse units. Each of the townhouses will have a receptacle, an outdoor receptacle suitable for EV charging. The EV-ready regulations require that 15% of all guest spaces for residential be EV-ready, and we do propose that. So, in fact, we're going to have substantially more than 15% because every single unit is going to have a charging receptacle. In addition, 15% of the guest parking will have the charging in the compliance with the state law. I just want to address briefly the parking along Linda's Way. I think it's important to note that a mention was made about an ordinance section that a waiver might be required from. The citation in the letter was 244-197. 197 is a non-residential parking standard. That standard only applies to commercial driveways. There is no standard in the ordinance, nor in RISA's, that prohibits 90-degree parking to a street, be it collector or neighborhood. So there's no relief required to provide this parking. I think it's a matter of just opinion.
I'm sorry, Mr. Warden, your testimony is that Linda's Way is a residential street?
No, I'm saying that the ordinance section quoted in the review letters does not apply.
Because?
It's because it's a residential street, meaning the ordinance only applies to non-residential parking.
Okay.
244-197 of the ordinance is entitled non-residential parking. The next section of the ordinance is 244-198, residential parking, which has no such standard. That's all. I'm just saying that it's a misapplication of the interpretation to this project. This project is not a non-residential project.
And none of the commercial aspects of the overall site are located close enough that they would be likely to park in this area?
Absolutely not. This parking would not serve any non-residential use whatsoever. In fact, they wouldn't be permitted to.
Okay.
Forgive me, maybe I'm forgetting, I'm confusing the phases. Is the paintball in this area?
The paintball is in this area, but there's no parking for the paintball in this area. The paintball is service. What we're proposing on Phase 4 is simply a play area in the woods. If you're looking at the exhibit, the air dome, the existing air dome is off to the right or the east. All the parking, and that's actually a question in the planner's review, all the activity for the business activity for the paintball occurs in the existing air dome. All the parking, you check in, you get your equipment, you pay, and all they're doing is walking from Phase 1 to the paintball through the woods.
Okay, so the paintball itself is in Phase 4, but all the
Correct.
parking where they sign up and everything is Phase 1?
It's only the play area. None of the parking, in fact, that's a prohibition, and you're certainly more than welcome to put it in the resolution. None of the parking in Phase 3 is permitted to be used by the paintball use.
Just a question on the paintball. Is that really needed? It's on wetlands, is it not?
It is located in forested freshwater wetlands, that's correct.
And don't you need permission from DEP to use it?
In my opinion, we do not, because we're not proposing to construct anything as part of the paintball. We're simply trying to use the existing natural obstacles, the trees and the undergrowth.
It sounds like it's just going to destroy everything that's on the ground there.
Well, I would say no, because understand that Phase 3 part of the site and part of Phase 4, under the previous ownership, there was a paintball facility on this property for many years. And that paintball use utilized the woods in Phase 3 and 4.
And that was granted by the town?
I can't speak to that. I mean, I did work on that project for the previous owner, but I did not work on the paintball. So I just know that the business existed there for at least 15 years.
We just had a dog sanctuary that was there for 20 years.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just, the point to the comment is addressing, can paintball coexist in forested area? And I'm saying yes, and as supportive proof of that, it did so for many years on the site previously. That's all.
This will come up when we do Phase 4, or
This
are we
is
done?
Phase 4.
Oh,
This is 3 and 4.
Yes,
We're
this is all.
mostly
My
talking
bad.
about 3, but it's also 4.
totally my bad. Okay, so let me ask about that paintball. So I think you're saying that we're gonna have a bunch of kids basically running around with a bucket of paint, throwing it at each other, and that's not gonna have any environmental damage to that wetland?
Yes.
That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Paint on the floor, on the trees.
Well, the trees
On
might get a
somebody's
little
face.
unsightly, but
No issue.
might get a little yellow or orange, but yeah. It occurred,
I just find, I think I'm, I just
If
find that
I'm-
hard to believe.
I'm pointing at
Be
a,
honest.
I'm
I
pointing,
don't know if it's my, sorry. Okay, you go ahead.
I'm pointing at A7, this area of the site, forested, many of it still forested, served as active paintball for many years, inside the woods.
Again, yeah.
I'm-
Legally or not legally, we don't know, but.
We're just trying to increase the recreation activities.
I don't even know, is that something that we're gonna rule on, or that's not our,
Well, certainly,
whether those wetlands can be used for paintball? Is the question. Is that something we rule on?
That is part of this application.
Okay.
the use is part of this application. As far as the applicability of the New Jersey freshwater wetland rules, that's a determination made by the state of New Jersey, not by this board.
Okay.
The state regulates wetlands.
And they say it's okay to have paint flying around the woods.
Well, they would have to.
I'm sorry?
They would have to. They haven't done
Have
so
they?
yet.
Have they?
No, not yet.
Wouldn't it be
Got it.
smart just to have, check with DEP to see if it's legal to use it instead of setting it up and having to eliminate it?
Well, we do our homework. I've investigated it. I've contacted some people at DEP, and verbally, they told me that basically the question is the activity that we're proposing development? You're not allowed to do development in wetlands. What is development? Development is removing trees, placing fill, removing fill. We're not doing any of those things. So I don't believe that what we're proposing is development. It's simply use of the property. It's not development. They would have to concur with that formally. I did reach out to them informally and received adequate responses that made us comfortable to appear in front of the board. But if the board approves that use, then we'll have to formalize that with the DEP. But
Okay, so I think, Ian, you're ready to address the questions in the review letters?
yes, I do. I wanted to go through particularly the plan and review letter. There were a number of items in particular under the bulk zone standards, under item 3, Roman numeral 3, B, and I just wanted to run through them very quickly. I know it's quite a few, but they are important. And these were basically footnotes to a zoning table that was put in the report by Remington Vernick. Under item 1, this is speaking of the area of the tract. Remember, we discussed the area of the tract at the first hearing in February. The tract being 286.5 acres, including the entire property, phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. He notes that the calculations include phase 1, 2, and 3 properties, and I simply want to just remind the board that the tract area, as calculated for the entire property, has been consistently calculated that way through every single phase of the project that's been approved by either the zoning board or the planning board.
I'm sorry, Mr. Borden, I feel like what you're saying is important and I can't hear you at all.
I'm sorry, am I not talking to the microphone? It's on.
Not with any market clarity.
It's on, sorry. So I'm simply saying that the tract area of 286.5 acres has been consistently used in every single approval that either this board or the planning board has issued for any phase of the project, be it phase 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah, I thought that's what we were talking about, and I'm glad that I stopped you, because this, I think, is the issue that had been raised with Mr. Alfieri, which is in that calculation, are you continuing to include phase 2, which has been removed from the GDP and is no longer under the same ownership?
Yes. That was,
And so, right, and so we'd had this conversation with Mr. Alfieri, and I'm sorry, Ms. Jennings, I can't remember if that was on phase 1 or phase 3 and 4, but he had made the representation on the record that he understood the issue. I had told him ahead of time that I had concerns about that. He was going to write me a legal memorandum, which I have not received.
okay.
So I would like to receive that.
I think
So
I will.
I don't want to bear down on you on that topic
I understand.
today, but I do want to see that. Thank you.
But I think I'm going to answer that in a different way in just a few minutes as it relates to density, so.
Okay.
I think I might moot that point, but I'll testify, you can agree or disagree. Number two, the maximum height was questioned is regarding the few of the buildings close to Monmouth Road, or, I'm sorry, I'm ahead of myself. This is regarding the building height for the cogeneration and the affordable housing building. We added a height table to the plans on sheet 2, and the maximum building height for those two buildings under the HCMU ordinance is 90 feet. The maximum, or the proposed height is 20 feet for the cogeneration. That is the height as approved under the current Phase 4 and Phase 1 approvals, and 35 feet for the affordable housing building. So the heights of those two buildings will easily comply with the maximum permitted height. Number 3 was the height of two of the residential buildings, townhouse buildings that are closest to Monmouth Road. Those would be the buildings up on the top of A7, right, in Phase 3. Question is, what is the maximum height permitted? Those buildings are set back 61 feet at the building. The ordinance allows, as the note indicates, an increase of height of 1 foot for every 10 feet of increased setback. So we're allowed a height of those buildings of 36.1 feet. The proposed height is 35.5. So the buildings comply with the building height. Number 4, that was requested to provide calculations for impervious coverage. We calculated the impervious area of Phase 3 and 4 at 27.1 acres. That, applying that math to the area of Phase 3 and 4, which is 122.8 acres, is a coverage of 21.3%. And considered over the entire tract, it's 46%, 75% is permitted. So we're well under the impervious coverage. For the project, both taken individually as a divided into the area of Lot 3 and 4 only, as well as the total tract area. And similarly, on the building coverage in 5, we proposed 9.6 acres of building coverage in 3 and 4. That's all the townhouse buildings, affordable housing, and cogeneration, which is a coverage of 7.6% of Lot 1.01, which is Phase 3 and 4 alone, and 20% for the total tract area of Phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. 30% is permitted. So we're well under the coverage, again, both taken individually as part of Phase 4 and 3 and 4, as well as the total tract. The number 6 is the testimony from last week, or last two months ago, is the cogeneration building is set back 14 feet from the sideline of Lot 2, which is Phase 1. That was a variance that was previously granted in the Phase 4 site plan. And also there's what's called a sports barn in Phase 1, which actually encroaches into Lot 1. Those, again, that variance was granted as part of the Phase 1 site and Phase 4. I would note the fact that, and this is getting ahead of myself, but I think just as a statement of fact, should we be approved for the site plan, we're going to discuss the subdivision, as we said. And as part of the subdivision, we did adjust the lot lines to eliminate those variances. So the testimony in those cases is twofold. One is the variances were previously approved. Second is we eliminate them if the project and the subdivision is approved. Number 7 is the density. The first, there's 2 subsets to this. First is, as I just testified about the tract area is 286.5 acres, which the density of our 505 units is 1.76 units per acre. Understanding that this question persisted, as Ms. Cipriani had noted in our discussion from February, when we did the subdivision map, currently the property is 122.85 acres. So combined with our number of units, places the density when looked at solely on lot 1.01 at slightly more than 4 units per acre. So to avoid any question on this density issue whatsoever, we included in the technical subdivision a portion of lot 2.01 and brought that into the project to make the tract area 126.85 acres, which then gives us a density of 3.98 units per acre. So we stand alone on the density, not utilizing the total tract area.
Yeah.
I hope that was clear.
No, but only because I wasn't following everything that you said. I think it's the lack of clarity is a delivery issue, not a statement issue. I just couldn't follow everything you were saying.
So,
Am
so
I the only one who has trouble following Mr. Borden?
the
I
tract
think
area.
so.
I think so, I'm sorry. I just,
The tract area is, with the subdivision, the tract area increases to 126.85 acres. That creates a density of 3.98. Of this property, lot 1.01 taken separately. So we are not relying upon the tract area, including Phase 2, to have conforming density for Phase 3 and 4.
so when you do, but that's when you add the technical subdivision?
Right. In the subdivision, we added some of the property from Phase 1 into Phase 3 and 4. We created a new lot line.
Okay, but you're asking us to approve Phase 3 and 4 first before you do the subdivision.
Yes,
So right now, for lots 3 and 4, that's not included in.
well, I assume that would be a condition of the approval, that the subdivision, the site plan would be conditioned upon the subdivision.
So we may have gotten there, but and I'm sorry, Ms. Jennings, I'm going to ask you, I need to see that written out. I can't. I get it. Yeah.
It's complicated, so
Thank
I understand. I'm following him only because I have it in writing in front of me, so.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Ms. Jennings, did I understand Mr. Borden, or maybe I'm getting tired? Did he state that lot 2 was sold? Phase 2 was sold? Did I misunderstand something?
Phase 2 was sold, yes. We had testified about that in February. The warehouse project
No,
is,
that's what my notes said. I'm like, did I write something wrong?
right. But understand, not to repeat what was said in the February meeting, because it was a lengthy conversation, but the technical subdivision aspect of this ordinance was done so to allow properties to be bought and sold within the project, because you have many different tenants. I mean, we have, in Phase 1 alone, you have 7-Eleven, Taco Bell, you have all these different, and some of those corporate entities don't want to lease the ground, they want to own the ground. So that,
But this technical subdivision that that is in association with this application is very different from that.
correct,
Okay.
correct.
Excuse me, you've been talking, are you planning on selling these townhouse lots?
The townhouses themselves will be fee simple, yes.
No, okay.
All townhouses are.
Okay, so Hovnanian, according to the plans, is going to be the builder. And they will have an HOA, and the HOA will work with maintenance and everything else.
That's correct. That, we had testified at the last hearing, yes. The homeowners association will maintain the roads, the parking, the drainage, everything.
So when this is built out and everything is sold, it will not be part of your project at all? It will
Correct.
be a separate.
Correct.
Oh, okay, and one more thing while we're in there. Who is building the affordable housing unit, and who will be responsible for maintaining the services that it demands?
That will be a separate owner.
Okay.
They will not be part of the HOA, the affordable units. That will be owned by an entity that will own and operate the affordables. Recall that the affordable units in this case are special needs affordables.
But they'll still be on the property, on that lot?
Correct. For example, one of just to use a name, we did a similar project in Manalapan with special needs affordable units, and there's a company there that we hope will build these units and operate them, which is called Enable. They're a nonprofit organization that provides affordable housing and personal care and maintenance to the residents for special needs people. So there's specialty companies that would do that. So my client would be responsible to build it, and then an entity such as them would operate it in accordance with the state guidelines.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
speaking of affordable housing, I could be totally, just curious about this. I believe you're at a 10% set aside because of the special needs, correct?
Yes,
and you've eliminated 48 special needs. Does that change the calculations at all? Do you still meet it, or, I mean, I'm confused how it works. I understand special needs, you don't have to do the 20% set aside, you go to 10.
We have 10%.
But now, today, somewhere, as I think Mr. Ray pointed out, you've eliminated 48 special needs. Does that change any of the calculations for the affordable?
No, I don't understand the eliminate. We have 46 proposed affordable special needs units.
And where on the site are those located?
They're located in a building located at the eastern end of Phase 4.
Where's the 48 that Mr. Ray said you eliminated?
I'm not sure what that reference is, Mr. Bresci.
Maybe he just misspoke.
No, it's in his report.
It's in his report?
Mr. Ray never speaks.
Oh, the original special needs were up in the front of Phase 3.
Okay.
Maybe that's what he meant. Maybe we moved them. Maybe that's what was
So
meant.
I just wanted to make sure it didn't change
No,
it doesn't change your obligation,
No.
nothing, it stays at 10%.
we maintain the 10% obligation is mandatory, and we intend to provide it.
Thank you.
I think that was number 5, or 8 then. Number 9 was a question about the maximum length of the town. Oh, thank you, Ernie. Yes, the statement is that the ordinance requires 10% of the minimum number, 10% of the number of residential dwelling units shall be reserved for special needs and affordable. The statement is that we have 505 total units. He grossed up the affordable so that we need 51 affordable, not 46. My response is, honestly, a little different than what I wrote, but that the question is, how do you calculate the affordable? Historically, and I'm speaking about over the last 10 years, Jackson Township Land Use Boards have taken 10, or whatever it is, 10 or 20% of the market number of units. I understand there is a calculation out there that some use to gross it up, which is 10% of the total number of units, including the affordable. Phase 3, as it's currently approved, is 10% of the total, and that's what we proposed here. We believe it's 46 is required. We'll be guided by your professionals' interpretations, but we'll provide whatever is required. As far as maximum length of the townhouse buildings, the 220 feet is the maximum building length of any residential building in the HCMU zone. The townhouse buildings are, maximum length is 182. So we're that's for an 8-unit building, which is the largest building. So we're substantially less than the maximum length permitted. Number 10, the decks were not taken into consideration when determining the minimum distance between buildings. The ordinance has different separation distances between residential buildings based upon their orientation, side to side, front to rear, rear to rear, and the dimensions are different. This comment relates to how do you measure that? Because we measured it between the buildings, not between the decks. And we believe our interpretation is correct because the ordinance requires it between quote-unquote principal buildings. That's a quote from the ordinance. Whereas 244, Chapter 244, defines a building as having a roof. So in order to be classified as a building under the Jackson Township Land Use Ordinance, it has to have a roof. The decks do not have roofs, thereby, in my opinion, they're not part of the building. They're certainly not part of the principal building defined in the ordinance, so the spacing between buildings is properly measured between buildings and not between decks. I would note that the decks do count against the setback, because that's a different part of the ordinance, but we do comply with the setback requirements as they relate to the decks. That's not a question in the planning letter. That's just a general statement. Number 11.
Is there a limit to the size of the deck in the ordinance?
There's no limit, no. We are proposing 10-foot deep decks, 10 foot by 12 foot, I believe. Number 11 relates to two of the buildings. The minimum distance of 50 feet. As I meant, the minimum distance between buildings that are back up front to rear or rear to rear, in this case, is 50 feet. And this is, the dimension is 46.6 feet. It gets a little complicated here because the ordinance says that there shall have a distance, minimum distance of 50 feet between the midpoint of the walls and the minimum distance of 40 feet between the building wall corners. So the separation is actually 50 feet at the midpoint of the buildings and 40 feet at the corners. The two buildings in question are up in Phase 3 in that area, and the buildings are actually offset. The midpoints actually do not line up with each other. So in my opinion, the 50-foot does not apply. The corner of the building to the rear of the other building is 46.6 feet, which is greater than 40 feet. So in my opinion, those two buildings do comply with the setback distance, minimum distance. Number 12, there's a building question about setback between building 3A or 422 between the building and the internal roadway of 30 feet is required. We checked our plans. I guess the dimension was not written on the plan, but we checked our plan and the setback is 30 feet. We'll add the dimension. And the same thing applies to buildings 3A10 and 3B6. He asks us to confirm compliance. Confirm compliance. I'm confirming compliance that the setback in all those cases is 30 feet, and we'll add the dimensions to the plans. And the same thing applies, actually not the same thing. Item 13, this speaks to the front of the buildings, questioning whether the front of the buildings, meaning behind the driveway, needs to be 30 feet from the curb line. We are 27 feet. These are, again, the fronts that have the driveways. That's not a condition that's contemplated in the ordinance. We believe the layout complies with the intent of the ordinance as far as setback to driveways and parking areas. Driveways, again, are not listed in the ordinance. Number 14, there's, again, a setback of a building to a parking area. That's a requirement of 20 feet. The comment is correct in that it states that less than 20 feet is provided for the affordable housing building. That is a correct statement. We do have to move that building back to comply with that, and we will do so. So that would be a condition of any approval, that we move the affordable housing building back to a distance, minimum distance of 20 feet to the parking, and we would agree to that. Item 15 is the architectures with the garages and the width. I think we've already discussed that with Mr. Ray. The two-car garage having a width of 16 and a half feet is really intended to provide one car plus the storage. We do provide the 3 spaces with the two-car garage and the two-car driveway in the one-car garage, as Mr. Ray had testified. Item 16 is regarding the parking. We had interpolated up when you talk about a 4 and 5 bedroom townhouse. A 3-bedroom townhouse under RISIS requires 2.4 spaces. RISIS does not include a standard for a 4 or 5 bedroom. We have used a number of 2.5 spaces for the 4-bedroom and 2.6 spaces for the 3-bedroom, or for the 5-bedroom. A discussion with Mr. Ray, we are going to use a number of 3 spaces for the 5-bedroom, and those spaces are already provided. The 1,587 parking spaces I testified includes adequate parking if we use a multiplier of 2.5 spaces for a 4-bedroom and 3 spaces for a 5-bedroom, plus the guest parking. Item 17 is the EV. I started with that because that's how Mr. Ray finished, but we will provide the 15% of the guest parking. All of the townhouse units will have EV receptacles. And item 18 and 19 are the same comments as 16 and 17, just related to Phase 4. My response remains the same. We have adequate parking with 2.5 spaces for the 4-bedroom and 3 spaces for the 5-bedroom. Item number 20, questions the parking for the affordable housing. We might need Mr. Rader, we can come back up and address this. Residential site improvement standards require 1.8 spaces per unit for a 1-bedroom residential unit. We provide less. We provide 1 space per unit. Again, this is a special condition because these are special needs units. Our experience in the Manalapan project is that nearly none of the residents drive. The parking that you only need is for the support staff. So the actual parking required based upon the actual use that's occurring in Manalapan is substantially less than 1 space per unit. He can provide more supportive testimony on that if needed. Item 21 is 15% of the affordable housing parking to be EV ready, and we do agree to comply. We will comply with that. And then item 22 is about recreation facilities. It references an ordinance 244-197, which is a recreation ordinance in town. And it asks for us testimony to discuss, actually asks for testimony to discuss the number of spaces for the paintball recreation area. And I already testified that those spaces will be provided in the Phase 1 air dome. Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Five recreation.
Yes, we have the 5 recreation areas, yes. Yes, yes. Otherwise, we agree to comply with any of the technical comments of both, of all the review letters. I don't know if I left any of the traffic and CME letter questions unanswered. I thought I hit them in my answers. If I didn't, Stephen, please tell me what I missed. What's that?
Madam Chair, I'm not sure if you're in a hurry to go home. Oh. The short answer is Mr. Borden was kind enough to share an outline of his testimony with me sometime today. I saw it very late in the day and printed it out. I've had no opportunity to reconcile it with the plans. I asked the board to be given the opportunity to reconcile it and report back. I also understand that there are going to be perhaps some plan revisions. I don't know if those are being asked as part of a continuance of the application or as part of a condition of approval, but if the application doesn't finish this evening, I'd like an opportunity to respond to these. I'm simply not prepared to go through all of them and say, yes, we agree, or provide retorts to Mr. Borden's testimony. As it relates to the last comment, which is we're going to comply with the technical comments, I have 16 more pages of comments after this. I think we should get some testimony regarding that, and I guess I'll ask Ms. Jennings, is someone going to testify about the units?
I mean, if you want architectural testimony, we can put it on. It's a townhouse unit. I mean,
The architect
Yes, I think we would. That's certainly the impression that I'm getting from
the
Mr.
architect
Hughes.
is here, so we can certainly put that testimony on if you'd like.
I think it's important, given that the density of the project and the standards that, quite frankly, of the 22 items we talked about, more than half of them relate to whether or not the building fits or not. So I think it's important to note what's going to be in the building, how big the building's going to be, have an understanding of patios and decks. The initial application came in and they were all 3 and 4 bedroom. Now they're 3 and 4 story and 4 and 5 bedroom. I think it's important that the board understands what's being proposed so that we can reconcile what's going to happen. I don't think there's anyone in the room, maybe Mr. Borden might remember, one of the applications over by Glory's, one of the townhome projects in the back, that's 465 units, had an issue with what's a deck and what's a patio. So the idea of what's that concrete thing you walk out on when you walk out the bottom floor of a building, and what's that thing you walk out with the sliding glass doors that has wood that you step out on? Because once you get over a certain height, that thing that you walk out on is part of the principal structure. So I think it is important that we have an understanding of what the buildings are, how they're being proposed. There was some testimony about driveway widths and getting rid of planting islands, what's the access to them, where's the sidewalk in front of them. So while certainly if the board members are satisfied and they're comfortable looking at the site plan and reconciling the pretty color pictures that we got from KHAV on those, then that's okay. If not, I think we need to get some testimony, because when the applicant receives an approval, it's going to reference these units. If the project gets sold to a different developer, what's going to happen? So while I don't doubt that the architect's testimony is going to be sufficient to say that they match what was submitted, I think it's very important that we create a record for the zoning officer post-approval. And Mr. Borden had just indicated, when someone asked, how big can the deck be? As big as we need to. Well, I'm not sure that's correct. And so I need to know what the applicant for this project is proposing to do in terms of the decks. I can't have someone come back in later and say, I want to put a 20-foot deck. And in point of fact, the zoning officer says, well, they're too close to the ones over there, or it negatively impacts the ability for the guy across the street or across the backyard to build a deck. So I do think it's important that we get some confining testimony about what it is and what it isn't, if that makes any sense to y'all.
He actually just answered my question. So there is an interpretation of where the distance between homes, where that was kind of a gray matter of, is it from where the deck ends or is it from when the dwelling ends? Is there an actual code to that interpretation of what is it from the distance behind? Is it the end of the deck or is it the house?
Yes, and Mr. Borden made a compelling argument. I'd like an opportunity, once we hear from the architect or the owner or someone, to tell us
Right.
what these things are going to be, so we know what animal we're dealing with. It's not just, let's take pot shots at the application because it's easy to. Let's get the testimony on the record so we can well define in an approving resolution what was agreed to, so there's no confusion when we leave here. We had a project that was 465 units that had to come back to a board. I think Doc Hofstein might have been here for that, because of the size of the decks. And I in fairness both to the applicant and the town and the owners who buy the units, there should be an understanding of what you can and can't build, in addition to the physical townhome unit. So thank you.
So, Ms. Jennings, my understanding of Mr. Peters, the beginning of his statement was that he had needed the opportunity to go through Mr. Borden's testimony, both what was said to you tonight and what was provided to Mr. Peters in writing, to see if it matched or satisfied the comments that he made. I would ask that once Mr. Peters has the opportunity to do that, if he needs to, that Mr. Borden be made available again.
Yeah, you'll be available again.
Yes.
Yes.
To the extent that he needs architectural testimony to properly interpret.
No, that was the second part of what he had to say.
I understand.
Yeah.
But I'd like to do that tonight if we could, because I'd like to get his feedback on that. I don't want to wait till the next hearing to get his feedback, only to find I got to change something again.
That is up to the board and the chair.
I would appreciate, if possible, his feedback as soon as possible so that I have time to plan before the next meeting.
Certainly, perhaps he'll give you as much time as you gave him.
Well, I submitted my plans a month and 5 weeks ago.
But when did you submit your testimony to him that he's reviewing now?
Yeah, I was being courteous.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but when was that?
That was yesterday.
Okay. That's my point.
Okay.
But I'm sure that Mr. Peters will try
But
and get
normally
you
I
so
do
you
the
get a
testimony
temporary
verbally in
basis.
front of the board, so don't, you sound like you're holding a good deed against me.
No, I'm absolutely not holding a good deed against you.
You're
saying-
punishing me for providing
Okay,
information.
so now I'm talking. And what I'm saying is that you had said that you wanted to have Mr. Peters' thing until you would have a time to respond. Since you gave him something today that he needs time to respond to.
I understand.
So we're pointing
I
out
know.
that that's apples to apples.
I understand. I agree with that. I'm just asking for a response from him professionally to my office when he's ready, not at the next meeting.
Oh, yeah,
That's
understood.
fair, and quite frankly, Madam Chair, if you want answers tonight, we'll go through them tonight.
No, I'm not asking for that. I'm just saying that I'd like to have a chance to not only discuss it, but also make any necessarily
Right,
changes.
so if he goes through
So
and
that
he
we don't
finds
talk about it
something and he
anymore.
has another comment, you want to have the opportunity to respond to it.
Correct. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Do you want to see if there's any more questions from the board for Mr. Borden?
Any additional questions for Mr. Borden? I'm going to open it to the public. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Borden on what you've heard this evening? Seeing no one come forward, I'm going to close public session. Ms. Jennings?
Yeah, could we bring up the architect now? Okay.
Do you swear that the testimony you will give before this board is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And would you state your name and give your credentials?
Joseph Lipanovsky, L-I-P-A.
Microphone, please.
Yes. May I sit down? Joseph Lipanovsky, Lipanovski.
And if you could, Mr. Lombowski, give the board the benefit of your background and qualifications.
Sure. Yes, I've worked with K. Hovnanian Homes for over 35 years in various architectural and managerial positions. I'm also the architect of record for several hundred buildings constructed under my tenure. I hold a Bachelor of Science degree in architecture from New York Institute of Technology and an MBA in management from St. John's University. I've been a registered architect in multiple states for over 30 years and have testified before several dozen planning and zoning boards throughout the region.
Mr. Lipanovsky, I hope I didn't butcher your last name. This board accepts your credentials. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if you could, Anthony, can you bring up the architectural exhibits and perhaps we can start there?
So while we're getting the exhibits, I'll just point out that this community consists of two models within the market rate homes. The models are comprised within buildings varying from 3 homes to 8 homes per building. And each of the two models will offer a 2-car garage. The size of the smaller home, which is at 3 stories high, is approximately just under 2,300 square feet, and that's a 4-bedroom home. And the size of the 4-story home is approximately 2,700 square feet. If you could pull up the front elevation of, I guess that prior. So as you can see, the typical building's exterior is compatible with the architectural style of the local area as well as the broader region. Each elevation includes many jogs, recesses intended to provide diversity of materials, color, and massing primarily at the front facade of each of the buildings. The primary material for both 3 and 4-story models is vinyl siding. Materials in a mix of horizontal siding, shake style, as well as board and batten at the front to complement design features such as carrot-style garage doors, box bay windows, and accent trim around dormers and gables. The rear and side elevations will be vinyl siding surrounded by window as well as door trim at the rear. So this building represents the 3-story, 2,300 square foot home. As you can see, there's a front entry adjacent to the 2-car garage door, 3 stories of living space. The ground level, if you could proceed to the floor plans of this model, the ground level, it consists primarily of a garage at the front. A garage at the front, adjacent to a foyer area leading to the second level living space. Behind the garage is our extra suite, which is intended to be a bedroom or den area with a private bath and closet. At the second level is a wide open floor plan, front to back floor plan with living, dining, as well as kitchen area with a large island for eating and entertainment. At the third level is the 3 bedrooms, which include a owner suite with a dedicated bath in the rear, as well as large laundry closets for a washer dryer. I'd like to point out back to the second level, the 2 doors at the rear wall access a deck that is 20 feet wide by 10 foot deep, and it's supported by posts at the end of that 10-foot dimension. You could see it in the 4-story version a little clearer. If you could proceed to the 4-story front elevation.
Wait, before we go there, can you what is the width of each of the buildings? I think that was a concern, the width of the buildings.
Yes, each of the buildings are 22 feet wide. The depth are 40 feet deep. And again, this model is 2,295 square feet of living space.
Okay, and when you say it's 3 stories, what's that in feet?
It's below the height requirement of 35 feet.
Okay, thank you.
This model is our 4-story version. As you could tell from the 3-story version, it's almost imperceptible along the streetscape. The intent is to have the front of all the buildings appear as 3-story buildings, but the rear is where you see the 4-story pronounced. If you proceed to the rear elevation of this model, you could see that the 4th story up top is basically includes a wide open deck above the 3rd level living space. And again, each of these buildings also in full compliance with the height limitation. You could see the deck. It's not exactly full width deck. We hold it back a foot on either side. Therefore, the 22-foot wide home has a 20-foot deck because there's a 2-foot separation between adjacent decks. At the ground level at the rear, each of the homes will have a door that leads out onto a 10 by 12 patio. The floor plans for these homes First, second, and third floor is identical, with the exception at the third floor, since we have a fourth level to get to, the stairway is inserted to provide access to that fourth level. But once you get to that fourth level, we have a open loft area, a dedicated bathroom, as well as the fifth bedroom. Leading out to the rear is that open deck space I had referred to earlier. Again, this home, 5-bedroom, is sized at 2,700 square feet of living space. I'll point out just a technical matter. The common walls between our adjacent homes will be 2-hour rated firewalls extending from the foundation all the way to the underside of the roof. Consistent with the New Jersey Uniform Construction Code, each of these buildings will be fully sprinklered. And the implication of the sprinklering is we will have on one side of our buildings a sprinkler closet. So the site plan reflects the sprinkler closet, but not all the renderings pointed out. It's generally a 4-foot by 6 or 7 foot wide, 1-story closet with a door and a shed roof above it. That concludes my overview of the product. I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions for Mr. Lipinovsky? Microphone.
On the 4-story units on the upper balcony, I'm going to call it a knee wall, even though it's not a knee wall. What's the height and to the code of, because I see that's open where the second floor has a railing, the one up on top. What's the height of the wall compared to the foot space?
The wall along the outside perimeter of that deck?
Correct, I guess like the...
It's going to be 42 inches high.
Okay.
Will
Yes, sir.
buildings have a different color of vinyl siding? So you could
Yes, we
your
will.
houses?
Yes, we will have 3 palettes. We call them color palettes, sort of groupings of colors, both in terms of the vinyl siding. We'll also have variation in color to the extent there's stone water table. They will all be compatible colors so that it both acts as a homogeneous community, but also within buildings, they'll be compatible from unit to unit to unit.
Just 2 things. One, and I understand, I just want to make sure that the record is clear. You referred repeatedly to it being a 2-car garage. I believe the testimony earlier from Mr. Ray was that it is going to be considered a 1-car garage.
For RSIS compliance, we're counting it as 1 space.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that was clear. And are these on a slab? What is the construction?
These are all constructed on slab on grade. So the first level is your first level. There will not be a basement underneath it. I would like to point out, while the garages are, relatively narrow at the front, along the rear half of the garage, there's generous storage space under the stair leading to the second level to allow for trash bins and recycling bins. That width along the second half of the garage is actually the full width of the home. So again, there is additional space within the garage.
May I have to?
No.
Yeah? Oh, you finished? Sorry.
No, I'm finished.
You're done? Okay. 2 quick ones, I promise. So 4.1 baths. What does a 0.1 bathroom look like?
If you look at let's see, do I have a pointer? That's a 0.1. It's a powder room. It's a bathroom with a water closet and a sink. It simply doesn't have a shower or tub.
Okay, great, thank you, that,
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. Can we go to slide 6, the one right before that? Just to that question that came up before. So if I'm measuring the distance to the next house in the back, right? Do I start from the porch, the bottom porch, the deck, sorry, the deck? Do I start from, where do I start to measure? According to our ordinances, right? Back to that question that we had before.
I believe Mr. Borden testified it's the main wall to the main wall of the
Main
building,
wall,
not the end of the deck to the end of the deck.
So the deck doesn't count. And considering that the top, and it's from the first 2 or 3 apartments, not the top one, because the top one has that, is a little more setback because it has that deck, right?
Yeah, the first 3 levels are the
That's
40-foot
where you
depth, the
start
full
measuring.
depth of the home. It's that 4th level that's not the full depth. As you can see, we held it back to allow for a nice open deck area.
Right, and that doesn't, when you're measuring, that doesn't count, the
Well,
fact that that's
that-
back.
Ms.
Yeah, well-
Jordan, if I, Ms. Jordan, I just, certainly the testimony of Mr. Borden was recapped correctly. I just wanted to remind you that Mr. Peters had asked for the opportunity to review that. So that determination had not been agreed to by Mr. Peters. He was still reviewing that.
Okay. And therefore, I think the deck might look like that, might not be like that. That really hasn't been decided yet. This is just a maybe.
Well, we've constructed,
Right, he said the deck could be whatever you wanted or something?
no,
No?
we propose a 10 by 20 deck to look like that.
Okay, well, that gives us a little more you know. All right,
Yes.
that's all I got. Thank you.
And they would be, each one of the decks and the patios would be as proposed?
Correct. Every family will have a deck. It comes with the home. It's not like an option that they could add on to. It'll come with the home they purchase.
Deck and patio or just deck?
The patio and the deck comes with every home.
Originally you said that, but then you just said deck. That's why I wanted to be clear.
Yes, the deck comes with every home, and I thought, Madam, you asked the patio as well, and the answer is yes, the patio as well.
And I'm sorry, what is the way that you describe the deck at the top on the 4th floor? Oh, the top deck.
Yeah, it's an open deck. It's a open deck without, just like the bottom deck is open, it's not roofed over.
Fair enough, thank you. I think,
Sorry. Yes, Gina?
Good question. Touching back on page 7, Anthony, if you don't mind scrolling. We're going to have access to the deck off the kitchen. I'm not seeing doors. Is that going to be amended?
I'm sorry, access to where from the kitchen?
The deck, the rear deck?
Yes, on this plan, we're showing windows, but those will be doors accessing all the rear decks.
Just regular single, like as depicted in the artistic rendering?
Correct.
Okay.
It'll be a 3080
Regular door.
glass door.
Got it. So now, my next question is, the decks are going to be staggered, so we're capping them at 20 feet in width and 10 feet in depth.
Yes.
That is going to be required for the CO as well as the patio. We just established that. We're going to give no options for any stairs.
No, we will not be offering options for stairs off of the deck leading down to grade.
Okay, I just want to clarify. And one of my last questions is, are you proposing the condenser where's your location of your condensers going?
Typically,
is it going to be on the patio or on the deck?
It's on the ground floor.
Okay.
Behind that extra suite, sort of to the opposite.
So it'll be underneath the deck on that patio?
Yes.
On the first floor? Okay. And you answered my question about that wall height. I think that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Mr. Peters?
Madam Chair? Thank you. Mr. Lipanovsky, thank you very much for your testimony. These are impressive units. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You indicated, but I just want to make sure it's clear, there are no basements proposed in any of the units.
No, sir.
At the rear of the units, is there any decorative fencing that separates one unit from another proposed?
None are proposed.
Okay. I sort of hate to put you on the spot, but there was some conversation before about how does someone walk from the street to the front of to the entrance to the unit? They utilize the driveway. So there's no separate walkway from the street to the entrance to the unit. There might be from the driveway to the entrance to the unit.
That's right. That's right. They would have to, if someone is walking from the street, a guest, they park in a guest parking spot and they walk up to the home, they'll walk up the driveway. Once they get to the front of the home, there'll be a 3-foot wide walkway from the edge of the driveway to the door area.
Now, as it relates to the issue that engineers and traffic engineers discussed this evening about widening the driveway, that obviously is going to limit some of the, I don't know if it's going to reduce or eliminate the landscaping in between the driveways for the units. Is that correct?
It will. My hope is that we're able to, at 18 feet wide, 22-foot wide home, 18-foot wide driveway should give us 4 feet to play with. And so we could, depending on Mr. Borden's engineering solutions, we could go straight across to the edge, or I generally prefer to hold back the driveway and have rock in between as a sort of a divider, because at a certain point the space is too narrow for grass to grow.
Anyone over the age of 35 who's been in this business has dealt with residents who don't like something about the design that you as an applicant and us as a board has approved. They think that there's a better way to do it.
Of course.
And unfortunately, sometimes we find out, some of them are minuscule and it's just two neighbors not being nice. And sometimes as to one of our board members, we simply don't design the project with enough parking. So I appreciate your candor, and quite frankly, from Kay Hovnanian, I would expect the ability to rely upon the testimony and the documents you have. The last question I have, well, it may not be related to the land use application, but I would like to know the biggest problem in terms of either enforcement or zoning officer issues has to do with a salesperson's ability to change a unit or a model. Can you talk to the board about, you had indicated that everyone gets a patio, everyone gets a deck, nobody gets stairs. Are there any other issues with these drawings that someone out in the field could walk up to one of your sales agents and say, you know, I'd really like that? Are there any options that are on these plans that we haven't discussed this evening that might affect setbacks, coverage, the ability to park vehicles? And even if you say you don't know tonight, if you find out between now and the next hearing, I'd really appreciate knowing our responsibility sometimes is to make sure the zoning officer doesn't say, hey, you need to come back to the board. So I think it serves both purposes.
Sure.
To make sure what things could possibly change when we leave here.
I could just share with you, in addition to my architectural role in the company, I also managed several communities in which I was responsible for sales, construction, and homeowner service. So I'm used to dealing with the requests of many homeowners for, you know, they want to personalize their home, they like certain features. One of the things that is very important to us is standardizing the products that we offer. We spend a lot of time, effort, and resources to understand the market and to design our products to meet the market. You're never going to please everybody, but I think we have a fairly decent system, certainly on the exterior. There's very little, in my experience, I don't recall a scenario where we agreed to bump something out or put a little roof cover over a patio because someone asked for it, because that's the house that they're selling, that they live with their whole life. We don't have that.
I'm concerned that if generally the box that outlines the units in these townhome buildings is 22 by, if the units are 22 by 40, if they're staggered, that's okay. I'm concerned that a sales agent comes in and says, you know what, I'd like to put more of these units that are 24-foot wide and 48-foot deep in here, and now the box starts to get bigger.
Oh, no, let me be clear. These are the models that we will be offering. A sales
Good
agent.
answer. I have nothing else for this witness, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Perfection. Any other questions for Mr. Lipinovsky?
Yeah, I just thought of one, sorry.
Okay.
To the fencing, right? So I look here, that little brick wall or retaining wall that's separating two big units. That's not standard, this is just showing what you could do?
Yeah, that's not standard. That's sort of representative for, if there's a portion of the site that has a high to low sort of slope, that's how we would handle a scenario where the homes to the right are higher elevation than the homes to the left.
Right, so that's why you put that.
That's, we do that, we call that a garden wall, or it's a feature that allows us to step the buildings to respect the topography,
Sure.
but do it in a way that's aesthetically pleasing because it's at the front.
Yeah, yeah. It helps me not get my neighbor's leaves onto my. So now, within that, so if I want to put a little fence between me and my neighbor, because I don't like his kids'
Now, our
basketball coming into
homeowner
my-
association
Can't do that?
documents will govern that, and we, fences are things, in a typical Hovnanian community, you don't, a homeowner doesn't have the ability to put fences if the HOA documents
Okay,
prevent it.
okay. But that wall that you just described to me, that's okay?
If that
That's
wall,
different.
the trigger on that wall is if it's 30 inches higher than the lower grade, it will require a fence. And if it requires a fence, there will be a fence. But we go out of our way to make sure we grade the site so that we're never in a position of constructing 30-inch retaining walls.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions? Mr. Omar, oh, sorry, Gina, go ahead.
My apologies. I know we touched on the fence needs, well, pretty much everything needs an HOA approval. In the possible instance that somebody would like to enlarge their patio. Technically, as a zoning officer, there's really nothing I can do. You don't have to abide by setbacks. I mean, as long as you're not above your coverage amounts. Is that something that even though they may have obtained proper zoning approval, that would be the HOA responsibility to then govern that?
Yes.
Just so I have a little bit more clarification.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Omar, you've been awfully quiet. Any comments?
Can you hear me? Just for the record, the Remington Vernick did handle the engineering site plan review comments. My comments are just limited to the subdivision plan.
Okay. No additional questions? Anyone from the public, which I'm going to open this to public session. Anyone wishing to come forward and have any questions or comments at this time?
Okay, yeah, just two separate things. One is if you have any questions for the witness, and then, assuming I'll end that, and then.
And we're going to open this to public session. Seeing no one come forward, we're going to go ahead and close public session. Board, it's up to us for discussion.
I actually have just one more question. Do you guys plan on selling your homes with KHAV on-site salesperson, or is this going to be sent out to an outside realtor?
No, we have a sales model that we will have Hovnanian employees selling our homes and constructing our homes and servicing them after homeowners
So they'll
close.
be sold right there on-site. I can go to that site and purchase a home on-site?
Yes.
Not going to be directed elsewhere?
No.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll leave you my card.
Because he doesn't want to fight his wife. I just misspoke and said it's up to the board for discussion, but actually, we're not discussing it this evening because Mr. Peters has requested additional time to review the comments and get back to Mr. Borden in a timely fashion. Correct, Mr. Borden?
And also, Ms. Jennings is going to provide me, or Mr. Alfieri, I'm not sure how that's working, But someone's going to provide me with the analysis that Mr. Borden had provided in writing to consider that issue on density.
Understood.
Thank you.
So do we have to pick a date for them to come back?
We do.
Ms. Gina, do we have a date for them to come back?
For Dawn, anything carried, please use the July 16th date.
July 16th?
No additional notice is required.
I don't even have an agenda for that.
Okay, thank you.
July 16th. Okay. No, they were to have a discussion at that time.
Yes, we're done. And on the 16th, Ms. Jennings, I assume that we would finish up here and potentially you wanted to have this done before you had the technical subdivision? Is that how you wanted to proceed? If you want to write, yeah.
Motion.
And Madam Chair, I apologize, I might not have been listening. We're also carrying the technical subdivision application to that night as well? It's a separate application on our agenda.
Yes, that's what I was just discussing with Ms. Jennings.
I apologize, thank you.
Yeah, she's going to get back to us on how they want to proceed on that.
Aye.
Second. Thank you.